This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of what if Naruto found legendary sword of a forgotten samurai during Forbidden Scroll incident. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
With one side dressed in blues and greens and the other in browns and grays, the battle raged between the opposing forces while fire burned. Blades, fists, and elemental magics, known to the crowd's ninja as ninjutsu, were occasionally used in battles between the soldiers. Broken weapons also lay like an offering to the god of battle, hoping that he would select one side to defeat the other and survive this war. The battlefield was covered in bodies and debris from previous attacks on the enemy, and large gashes in the ground were evidence of the elemental ninjutsu used against the opposing force. This did not break the spirit of the soldiers and samurai who were superior to their enemies. Their advance on their adversaries was only halted by the icy embrace of death. The brown forces dispersed to reveal to the green enemies that a lone man had entered the opening, proceeded to walk, and halted a stone throw from the opposing line. He wore a crimson kimono that was tied with a black sash to keep it closed. On the left side of the sash, an okatana rested with a wakizashi in the sash knot, preventing them from being jostled or dislodged from their position. A black haori covering it all, concealing his arms from view, completed this appearance. As soon as the man's chakra flared and several of them started to perspire, they became suspicious. "We may lose without reinforcements quickly," was the only thought. The man did not move when several ninja charged him. The first made a kunai lunge, only to be disarmed and have his neck broken when the man grabbed his hand and twisted both. He grabbed the offending kunai and threw it into another ninja's head. As the ninja drew his weapon, a short wakizashi, and faced his opponent, the others signaled, and more arrived for the two. The ninja stood up quickly and called out, "Who are you?" The man shook his head and glanced at the ninja. "I am a Hojo Sanaruka, a samurai that my lord has sent to aid Tsuchikage-san." This comment infuriated the ninja, who yelled back. The ninja jumped back as the two behind him let out twin cries of, "Kaden! Great fireball technique! Who the hell does your lord think he is? This is a ninja war. There is no reason for him to meddle in affairs that he has no rule in," the ninja exclaimed. The ninja fell silent as the flames subsided, revealing him unharmed save for his smoking clothing. He should have paid better attention, he would have actually been a threat. The ninja snarled and considered his weapons. The only similarity between the okatana and the other was that it was of average length. It had a gray handle wrapped in a black cloth that depicted hexagons by pattern, and its pommel was composed of some dazzling white stone. Two striking purple ribbons were attached to the guard, which blew in a non-existent wind. The guard was made of the same white stone, but it was shaped like a koi fish that wrapped itself around the center. The gray sheath had spiraling black designs on it. With the exception of the lack of ribbons, the wakizashi had the same designs. The man folded his hands and placed them over the katana's handle. Overall, they were both very good weapons. He shook his head. "Samurai, draw your weapons." The ninja turned red with rage at being disregarded as a threat. "I draw my weapons when it is required, never any time else." The man's eyes turned red, and he held 3 black tomos in a circle. "Very well then, I'll make you draw your weapons, Sharingan. I'll show him why the Uchiha clan is feared." As the Uchiha charged with his wakizashi and swung, the man known as Hojo stiffened. Hojo snatched up the blade, snapped it off the handle, and threw it through the chest of another ninja who was charging. The Uchiha was then choked and thrown off his feet into the arms of 3 additional allied ninja after he had taken him by the neck. One of the ninja hurried off to get their Hokage to help him while this was going on. Enough playing around, samurai. Kaden, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Hojo used the armor on his forearms and back of his hands to bat away several balls of fire that were hurled at him. As the Uchiha roared and lunged towards Hojo, the samurai crouched and delivered a rising star kick, which the Uchiha managed to avoid with his eyes and attempted a punch that sent the samurai reeling backwards. To the surprise of the Leaf Ninjas and the Iwa Ninjas, the Uchiha launched another fireball attack, but the man waved his arm, causing a crashing force of water to shoot towards him and cut him and the entire group behind him down. In an attempt to escape the man who had nearly destroyed the entire spearhead of their battle formation in a single blow, Hojo approached the Leaf Ninja who were backpedaling as fast as they could. The Leaf Ninjas roared back in rage, which made Hojo frown. "Leaf Ninjas," Hojo called as he halted at their lines, "forfeit and allow yourselves to be captured by Iwa and you will be unharmed under my command." "Very well," he said softly. Iwa Ninja retreated back for the final attack. As soon as Hojo raised his arms, the Iwa force immediately retaliated. Officer Skill Class 4. Ninjutsu, Firehawk. The ninjas watched in horror as the sky darkened and a bright light emerged in the distance. As it got closer, they couldn't help but notice a huge bird that was breathing in flames. It then let out an unholy scream and split into two identical birds. Their proximity had scorched the ground beyond comparison, so they both cawed and pulled up, frightening the ninjas. They looked up and saw nothing until they saw them merge into the original one, dive down at a speed that shouldn't have been possible, and explode on impact, engulfing the Leafs ninjas in the equivalent of a nuclear firestorm. The Nidame had arrived in time to witness the assault slam into the earth, destroying nearly his whole army in its wake. His burning men were saved when he swiftly made hand signals and sent a tidal wave of water crashing down on the flames, dousing them. Then he created a water dragon and launched it in the direction of the attack's caster. As the dragon rushed past, Hojo glanced and jumped out of the way. In a flash of blue, he turned to see the Nidame holding something made of clay. As the man looked at him curiously, the Nidame asked, "What did you do to my men?" With the exception of the man in front of him and the retreating Iwa forces, the Nidame observed the battlefield around him to be completely devoid of life. "I disposed of them as were my orders, by the Tsuchikage." He acknowledged that he was at a significant disadvantage and attempted to extract water from the air, finding it to be the equivalent of a desert. With a frown, he pulled Raijin to activate it. Despite passing their handles and bringing a Tonto out from behind him, the man eyed the sword and reached for one of his own before crouching. Then Hojo said something. "Nidame Hokage, understand that if you lose here your village will be destroyed in a flash of my power, so if you are going to make a last stand, now is your time to go down in history, for you will have crossed blades with Hojo Sinaruka, and if you do somehow survive will be able to boast of this to your dying day." The Nidame nodded as they both began to attack each one another. When their Nidame engaged the strange samurai with his Raijin, the guards from the Leaf Village wall paused, expecting a quick cut in his death. However, the man repelled the attack with a small Tonto and delivered a series of close, killing blows to the Nidame, who momentarily ducked each time. The man flew back after the Nidame squatted down and sliced his chest. With blood streaming from his wound, Hojo stood facing the Nidame. He threw away his broken Tonto with a smile, opting to fight without a weapon. The man grabbed the Raijin's grip and twisted it, piercing the ground and sending a shock along it before cutting off as the Nidame charged. As the Nidame turned to face the man after staring at his trusted weapon in disbelief, the man's foot struck his head, sending it flying to the side in a flurry of blood. Then Hojo collapsed to his knees and his mouth gushed blood. A horse arrived with the Nidame's head in its mouth, and the samurai crept over to sit on its headless body. When he removed its head, the onlookers saw it vanish in a whirlpool of black, indicating that it was a summons of some sort. Then he attached the head of the Nidame to the body of the Hokage. "You are a true warrior, Nidame-san. I hope we can offer our condolences to one another when we cross paths in the afterlife. I'll leave this here, but if anyone is in danger from your village or anything related to it, they only need to locate my swords here to be given access to my summon of the Horse Clan, a scroll that covers the samurai's mandate, and a way to get there. Maybe they will be able to speak to the spirit of my swords on the same scale that I do. Kami Sama, this is my final request." Hojo Sinaruka then let his swords fall to the ground, where he saw them engulfed by the ground. Next to the Nidame Hokage, he lay on his back and let his soul be released from its physical body. In the village of Hidden in the Leaves, today was a joyful day. The Genin hopefuls in the following class had just finished their exam and performed exceptionally well. They would become the actual ninjas of their cherished village tomorrow when they were assigned their Junin sensei. Indeed, as their parents showered them with praise, the day could not get any better. One young child disagreed with his peers. On the smallest possible percentage, he was the only one who had failed. His gaze was almost detached as he observed his classmates and their parents. Once more, he was lost in thought as he saw a mother embrace her son. That's the embrace of a mother, then. She appears to be attempting to smother him in her chest. I wonder if my mother would have embraced me in that way if my life had been different. As he observed the pair, who appeared to be unaware of their surroundings, the blonde reflected on this. Looking to the pair's immediate left, he dutifully observed one of the men slit his throat. The man watched as the demon child grinned broadly and leapt off the swing and made his way to the academy gates, saying, "Time to use my time." Honed maneuver of dodging trouble. Satisfied that he had frightened the despised child away, the man grinned and turned back to his family. The blonde's smile disappeared as soon as the man turned around, and his thoughtful expression returned as he made his way to the gates and turned back toward the academy's entrance. The Sandame and Iruka Sensei were standing there. He nodded to them and saw the Hokage nod back before leaving the academy grounds. "Thus, Naruto, you still long for what was so brutally taken from you so long ago. The elderly village chief looked up at the sky and couldn't help but wonder, Minato, what would you do? I'm really sorry for this, Naruto. But I must keep the answers from you still and pray that your spirit will still hold as it always does. Naruto stopped as he glanced to his immediate right while strolling along the road that encircled the academy. He seemed to ask a brick wall, do you require something from me, Mizuki? Sensei? The wall remained silent, but the blonde's unwavering gaze kept meeting it until a man with white hair and a Chunin outfit appeared out of nowhere. In his mind, the Chunin was always cursing himself for letting the demon child sense him before he had intended to do so. He laughed out loud, but it didn't stop the blonde from staring at him. Very good, Naruto. You being able to sense me shows that you were worth the time I put together for this little test for you. Damn brat, feels like Ibiki from the torture and interrogation department is watching me. Okay, Mizuki, time to lay your miraculous trap. As he considered a test for himself, the blonde remarked, it wasn't very hard, Mizuki. Sensei, you had ninjutsu lessons with the entire class today and you must be a little low on chakra considering you didn't try to hide your signature. Very astute, Naruto. Now what of my plans for your test, would you like to hear it? The blonde scratched his neck and nodded. He's an attentive little brat, isn't he? Most wouldn't have even noticed that small slip. He stood motionless as Mizuki grabbed his shoulder and they both disappeared using Shushin no Jutsu. Why not? I had planned on waiting for my last chance to take the test next year, but yours sounds more interesting. After a half hour, Naruto reviewed the mission Mizuki had given him while sitting in a tree. Naruto nodded and rose from the branch he had been lying on. So I sneak into the Hokage tower, take a scroll, and meet him at this shack outside the village. Seems easy enough. He leapt forward, grabbed a branch, and swung himself into another tree in the direction of his objective and the sunset. After an hour, sitting in the chair in the receptionist's cubicle, Naruto gazed down at the unconscious woman whose loud-ass yell had nearly blown away his entire cover. He shook his head and went through the drawers, locating a floor map that indicated the likely location of the target as well as a list that indicated the time of the next guard switch. As he turned to go, he glanced at a picture out of the corner of his eye and nodded, memorizing the writing on both pieces of paper. He turned to see a photo of a young woman holding a baby girl, who was clearly the receptionist. Naruto paused, turned to face the woman again, and raised her chair so she would wake up comfortably. Then he bolted down the corridor. It seems Mizuki Sensei was already planning ahead for me, he said, jumping over the fallen guards and pushing the door, unaware that he had broken a seal sequence that would have alerted the tower to his presence. Sadly, the woman who would normally relay the information was dozing off in her desk chair. He made his way to the scroll room without any problems and discovered both guards already unconscious. After scanning the room, Naruto grabbed the scroll cabinet door and pulled it roughly. This time, there's no luck. What should I do? Let's see. He exited the scroll room and immediately discovered the explosive tags he was searching for in the unconscious Chunin guard's pouches. He put a weak one on the door's lock and laughed as he returned to the scroll room. Should be right about, he said as he hurried out of the room and waited, then clicked the door shut and said, now. Bang! He rushed into the room and swiftly searched the cabinet, found the scroll, tied it to his back, and then proceeded to the door, stopping to empty one of the Chunin guard's equipment pouches of the remaining exploding tags. Then he went out the closest window. After 10 minutes, Naruto was flying through the trees in the direction of the meeting spot. He observed his surroundings drably. Wasn't this close to the battle site where the Naidame Hokage was killed? As Naruto leapt through the trees and struck the ground hard, he thought, now, I kind of wish I had paid more attention to our geography and maps class. Oh well. He was standing next to a well-known, deserted shrine. He read the plaque as he moved forward. This is the location where Tobirama Senju, our beloved Naidame Hokage, lost his life in combat against innumerable opponents of unquestionable skill during the Second Great Shinobi War. Naruto denied the village's version of events, saying, you know they write that, but with the way this village over-exaggerates, he probably just got stabbed in the back. He raised his head and studied the moon. I have never before seen a red moon, Huh, strange, he muttered to himself as he glanced around. Naruto pulled it open and looked at the index, saying, Naidame.san, if you did die here maybe you won't mind looking after me while I try to learn a technique from this scroll. Kage Bushin no Jutsu and its replication techniques. Nope. Clones are my worst skill, crashing water pipe no Jutsu. Sounds cool, but I want to be able to do more than spit water at people. Mokuton. Birth of dense woodland, that's one of the Shodem's signature techniques, and requires a bloodline. Hirishin no Jutsu. Damn, that one belongs to the Yondaime. Next. Edo Tensai. I don't like the idea of disturbing the dead's sleep. Next. Kaiten. Hummingbird's harmony. I don't want to be another Uchiha who uses a fire show as a signature move. Mokuton. Moku Bushin. Again clone. And Shodem's bloodline. And Sweden. Destructible water march no jutsu. Again with the damn water spitting. After 5 hours. Well, this is depressing, an entire scroll of forbidden kinjutsus, and I couldn't find one that makes sense for me to know how to use, except the one on how to breathe underwater, but that was a freaking bloodline of the Nidame. Naruto looked up and clapped his hands together and looked skywards. No offense meant Nidame-san. Naruto looked back at the scroll and thought about all of its techniques. That's perhaps the greatest collection of techniques in the entire village, and I couldn't even find one that was even close to resembling something I could use. Maybe being a ninja just isn't the best path for me. No more going to the academy, no more getting glared at, no more people trying to squash me like a stepping stone in their goals, and perhaps, maybe, I could leave and go to the capital and join the daimyo's military instead. Yeah, I'll tell Gigi in the morning that I have had an epiphany, the likes that rarely ever happens. Naruto nodded and rolled up the scroll just as his sensei Iruka landed at the edge of the clearing. Hi Iruka. Sensei, I'm ready to go back. You can tell Mizuki Sensei that I really don't care about being a genin anymore. I'm not going to be someone who just dies for no reason. Naruto waved languidly at his sensei, taking off his kunai holster, his ninja gear pouch, and the shurikens he kept hidden in the inside pocket of his stealth suit. He unwrapped the cloth that was covering his face. Mizuki is a traitor? Naruto doesn't care if he graduates? He has full tactical gear, triangles have 3 sides? Ha 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 ha. Man, that's funny. Okay, just kidding, back to the story. Iruka began to understand what Naruto was saying, but he was shocked by what he was hearing. He kicked out at a shuriken while spinning, causing a huge gash in his leg. He fell, writhing in agony as the pain traveled through his limb. At the edge of the clearing, where Iruka lay moping in agony, Mizuki then leapt down. Mizuki pointed to the hurt Iruka and said, "So Naruto, you're here and not a second too soon. Good, now, hand over the scroll, or you can wind up like your useless sensei here." After glancing at the two in the forest behind him, Naruto turned back to Mizuki, who gave him a look akin to that of a vile villager. Mizuki. Sensei, normally this is where two ninjas would exchange witty banter and do battle till one or both were either incapacitated, or more likely dead. But you forget one thing in your facing me. Mizuki grumbled, and what is that demon brat? He shocked both of the seasoned shunins by saying, that is the small fact that I am not a ninja. He then leapt into the bushes and vanished. Did he simply flee? Mizuki roared, "You little brat," as he attempted to follow him, but Iruka grabbed his leg. "Bastard," he exclaimed, slamming a foot into Iruka's face and causing him to collapse. After saying, "I'll come back and finish you later," Mizuki vanished behind Naruto. Iruka embraced unconsciousness after saying, "Run Naruto and hope you can hold him off until the Hokage finds you." Naruto had started to head north during Iruka's mental prayer. He had no idea that this was the direction where nothing lived because the Kyuubi had attacked. He shuddered as he recalled the stories of the terrifying beast. His instinct told him that this night would have more mention of the dreaded Biju before it was over. He heard something, rolled to the side, and saw an exploding tag. His eyes widened as he leapt behind a tree as it went off. As Naruto leapt off to return to where his injured sensei was still lying, he thought, this won't work. Mizuki is a chunin. I can't beat him physically, so I guess that leaves for me to outsmart him. Now, if I were a bloodthirsty ninja, where would I expect my prey to never go? Exactly, I'll head back to the clearing, he won't expect that. Not good enough, devil fox, Mizuki smirked as he saw a black blur fly by him about 80 yards to his right, and he immediately followed him. After being kicked by a double mule about 20 yards from the clearing, Naruto flew back and rolled backwards a few times before he stopped, glaring forward to see Mizuki standing in front of him holding another monster shuriken. Did you end up fleeing from me? Are you that dumb, or did you realize it was pointless? Out of the corner of Naruto's eye, he noticed something unexpected. He scowled and searched for something to repel the insane chunin. Oh, this is just great, the kid's going to fight me off with a stick, just priceless. Mizuki laughed as Naruto took two objects out of the bushes, while the demon leapt aside and pushed his hand into a bush. When Mizuki saw what the boy was holding, two brilliant swords, one an okatana and the other a wakizashi, his laughter died in his throat. What the hell? Naruto was looking at the weapons in his hands with awe. These are beautiful. Why, thank you, child. I find you quite handsome as well. Wait, these swords are talking to me. No, swords can't talk. Am I crazy? Child, one as talented and handsome as you can never be crazy, just able to drive others crazy. Did a sword just quote snow country poetry? Oh sister, do wake up and meet our new wielder. He's quite handsome and has a variety of knowledge over the world. Sister, what are speaking of, we have not had a wielder since old man Sonoruka.san. That is true, sister, but do look at this one, and tell me that is not one of the most handsome faces we have had the pleasure to meet. Very well, sister, give me a minute to adjust to being awake and I will observe the hot one. Hot one? Oh dear sister, he seems to be able to hear us even when we are not addressing him. He is talented. Indeed, and he is rather handsome. He will make a finer wielder, and when we get to be better acquainted, something else as well. Ooh dear younger sister, you were right. There will be time for that later. We've both been gone for so long without a good companion in that area. As soon as Naruto realized that he had witnessed the Chunin swapping his enormous shuriken for a genuinely menacing looking kunai, he realized that whatever the blades were discussing would benefit him in the long run, but not with Mizuki. Ladies. Yes, cute one. Indeed, what is it, hottie? I don't mean to be a bother, but could you help me end this man? A man where I see nothing worth fighting, hottie. Cute one, do you mean the one who looks as if constipation is defeating him? Yes, my ladies, I like that. What do you think of it, sister? It will be a fine title till we better introduce ourselves, dear sister. I however would not give that pitiful excuse for a man a chance to feel my touch. I will do it then, after all our last wielder did give you more chance in dance than me. What can I say, elder sister, perhaps mine is just that much more beautiful. Sniff sniff. What is wrong, ladies? Naruto thought as he dodged a lunge by rolling to the side. Cute one. Younger sister insulted my beauty by comparing our dances and sniff, saying that mine was inferior. I only said it because mine has progressed while yours has by no doubt gone out of tune. Out of tune? Yes, older sister has been so long out of use that the symphony of battle probably doesn't even interest her anymore. Younger sister, you have gone too far. I have not lost the love sniff I hold for battle. Elder lady. Sniff, yes, cute one. Perhaps younger lady just needs to see you dance once more, and you can show her why you are the elder. Perhaps the hottie is right, sister, show me that the other half of us can still dance. Sniff, very well. Cute one, would you do me a request? What is it, elder lady? Would you Oh, enough, sister. She wishes for you to be her partner in her dance to show me that she has not lost her tune. Okay, how do I do that exactly? Quite simple, cute one, you must draw me for me to dance. As a rule, the man always asks a lady to dance. Well then, elder lady. Would you have this dance with me? Oh, of course, cute one, let us begin. Okay then. Wrong blade, hottie. I'll let it pass this time because you still haven't been introduced, but next time I'll take your sweet little right hand off at the elbow. Sister, that was cruel. He didn't know you should apologize. No, don't scold her, elder lady. What? Huh. Pain is my key to learning, and with this I will remember to always respect you as individuals as well as a pair. After all, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Naruto thought as he ducked Mizuki's swipe and kicked him in the groin with an axe kick, causing the enraged Chunin to scream. Sister, yes. I like this one. He might be the strongest we've ever had as a wielder, and he might master us. You really think so? Yes, I do, don't you? I'm not sure, maybe we'll find out late. Elder sister, why do you pause? What happened? I've been drawn again, and his life energy is positively staggering. It dwarfs the power of our creator. You can't be serious. Now I want to play too. You'll have to wait your own dances, no sister, because there's no way in hell I'm giving up mine. Please, elder sister, just a little step. No dice, younger sister, now watch us dance. It feels as if I'm holding hands with someone, it's so. Naruto was praising the feel of the wakizashi in his hand as the sisters conversed. Reassuring. Obviously, a couple cannot dance without each other's hand joining, and it is typical for us ladies to have soft hands. Are you okay, sweetie? I'm ready, elder lady. Show me and the younger lady that you haven't lost your touch in the least. Naruto felt warm and noticed the burn from the previous seal. It didn't go away, but it stopped hurting. Then he looked at Mizuki. Mizuki's breath caught as the entities of a beautiful woman and an oni masked figure appeared behind the boy. They tapped the demon child's back, causing him to straighten. The demon brat squatted and his chakra flared, and flared. Mizuki. Sensei, I have to thank you. If it weren't for this battle, I never would have had this feeling, a feeling of hope, a feeling as if I'm defended from the hate of the villagers. In response, I'll make this as painless as possible. I can still feel his rising even though none of the demons are at Sanin level. Mizuki observed him removing the scroll's cord and tying the wakizashi's sheath and the okatana to his side. Then he assumed a position Mizuki had never seen him adopt. He watched as the brat vanished and the entities embraced. The sensation of the air blowing through his hair was something Naruto welcomed. Every time he brought Elder Lady to rest on the traitor's body, he made precise cuts under the guidance of Elder Lady. When he tried using more force in his blows, he was rewarded with slashes, the elder lady's laughter, and cries of delight as he performed flawless blocks in time with her offensive dance. Before long, it was impossible to tell who did what. The sounds of flutes and strings reverberated throughout the forest. As he assisted an injured Iruka into the clearing, the Sandaime observed that the boy's speed and accuracy were far superior to those of any genin. Kami then vowed that the boy would enter the ninja program regardless of whether he killed Mizuki or not. Naruto quickly noticed his guests and informed the lady that he had to be done quickly. She simply sighed, led him through one of her and soon to be one of his favorite closing moves, and stated that she anticipated a longer dance the next time. Mizuki flipped forward onto his back as Naruto slammed his palm into the back of his head after Elder Lady chopped off one of his legs at the knee. Elder Lady cut Naruto's neck just enough to paralyze him from the neck down, but not enough to stop the pain, while he was there before he landed. The traitor was rendered unconscious when he and Elder Lady struck the back of his head with her pommel. As Iruka limped over to see how Mizuki was doing, Sarutobi approached the boy and observed how carefully he handled and sheathed the blade. After giving him a quick glance, the boy sat down and kept those swords as close to him as he could. Sarutobi cautiously said, "Naruto, are you okay, my boy?" The boy nodded, hung his head, and gave him a look. The Sandaime relaxed a little and explained to the boy the plan he and Iruka had devised to keep him out of trouble and to demonstrate who was really at fault. "Naruto, do you know why you're hated by your village?" "Yes, I've known since first year in academy, but still tried to prove everyone wrong." The old man was more surprised by that than he had anticipated. Naruto nodded as the Sandaime spoke and even responded to questions the Hokage posed. The Sandaime assured Naruto that he would put his trust back in him by helping him in any way he could. "Naruto, do you resent me for holding this from you?" "A little, but I have a way we can make up on that later." Until they reached the question they both knew was coming, the questions went like this. The Sandaime questioned, "Naruto, where did those swords come from?" The Sandaime instantly went pale at the idea of a villager being sliced to pieces by Naruto. "They're my guard from Kami Sama to help me deal with the hate in the village." "Not that way, Gigi. They're my mental and emotional guard. I wouldn't dare brutalize their beauty by killing ignorant villagers." The Sandaime sighed and glanced at the blade. "They're beautiful swords, Naruto-kun." Naruto chuckled a little and said to the swords, "Now don't let that go to your head, girls." There was a pause before he started laughing, startling the Sandaime because it wasn't his mask but genuine laughter. As they both stood, he laughed a little himself. As they approached Iruka, who had just sealed the unconscious Mizuki into a scroll, Naruto flexed and Sarutobi recalled something. The elderly Hokage questioned, "Naruto-kun, how can I win back your trust?" Naruto heard the women talking in his head as he looked down. In a firm voice that chilled the old monkey, he said, "You can allow me to graduate as an extra test and allow me to become a samurai instead of a ninja." "Why a samurai, Naruto-kun?" "Because Gigi, I've seen the best techniques this village has to offer and none of them match me skill-wise, so I'm going to cut my own path as a samurai and leave the position of Hokage to those who are more wanting of it." "That's a strong goal, Naruto." The Nidaime fought several powerful samurai during the Second Great Ninja War. They're people who demand respect in all its purest form, and have unquestionable loyalty to those that they trust and serve. After giving this some thought, Naruto asked the two sisters a single question. "Ladies, may I ask you something?" "Yeah, cute one, what is it?" "Yes, sweetie, I'm listening too. What question do you have?" "How would the two most lovely swords in the entire world?" "Giggle. You are a talented flatterer, all right. Like to be the companions of the future most powerful samurai in the entire world. I would like help this powerful samurai reach his primary goal, and others we may share. I just pray you don't lose yourself in the quest or we will have lost the reason we started, and our love interest." "She is right, cute one, we must not lose ourselves along the way." "Absolutely, I can also promise something else along the way that you might enjoy." "What is it?" "I better not be feeling this happy for you to just say that you're going to take us to exotic places." "But sister, I would like to visit some exotic places with cute one." "I would too, but this can't be all he had in mind. We will go to some exotic places, but what I was going to promise, there are going to be a lot of dances in the future. Yeehaw for cute one, I wish to come with you on this quest of dances." "Me too. But I still haven't gotten to dance with our new wielder yet, next time's my turn, hottie." As they made their way from the forest to the tower, Naruto grinned at the Hokage and said, "That sounds like something I could do, Gigi." The old man grinned at all the new experiences our budding samurai would have along the way. Many would have been too busy sleeping from the previous night to hear the caw of a bird, which signaled the arrival of morning in the Leaf Village, but there was one exception to the aforementioned. One Naruto Uzumaki was sprawled out on his bed, staring up at the ceiling, scratching his head with his right knuckle, something he had been doing more and more lately, to his perplexity, and examining the seals that the Sandaime had placed there, he said, "Restriction seals, they're supposed to apply massive amounts of pressure on the parts of my body, equal to the chakra my body can produce." He also said that since they were seals, I would not be branching off of my path as a samurai, given that seals were originally perfected by monks whose mission was to help everyone equally, and that seals were the preferred weaponry of officer samurai because they allowed them to use abilities known as officer skills. However, Gigi was no longer able to explain what they do because they are so strongly protected by the skill dojos. Naruto sat up and flexed his hands, causing them to make terrible cracking sounds which echoed throughout the empty apartment. He sighed and looked at the calendar, and saw today was the day he would need to be in class, for meeting his class for team selections. He looked at the palm of his right hand and saw the after image of the burn from younger lady. He picked up the lengths of blue silk which he wrapped around both palms like the ladies had told him. He went over to the small closet and pulled on the light. Inside were a majority of clothes that he had made the purchase of during the week after the defeat of Mizuki with the money the Hokage had given him for retrieving the scroll of seals. He was glad that the orange was gone, there really was no use for the color. He pulled out one of the many identical sets and pulled it on. Bandaging his feet while leaving the toes uncovered solved his need for footwear. A pair of black pants took care of his legs. He took a length of black silk and tied it around his waist, hiding the belt he wore underneath to hold his swords in place from view. He pulled on a black netted shirt and pulled it taut underneath his belt. He proceeded to pull another pair of bandages out and tied them over his forearms. He then headed over to a cabinet across from his bed. He opened the cabinet and showed what lay inside. His beautiful swords and a set of armor, not full samurai armor, but light oiled leather armor that he had bought from the weapons store. It was there to go underneath his clothes for extra protection. He put the greaves on underneath his pants, then proceeded to belt the breastplate over the net shirt, and attached two thin shoulder pads to the breastplate. The forearm guards he just belted over the bandages he had earlier applied. Naruto then stretched, making sure there was no pinching or unnecessary hindering of movement. He nodded and pulled out the last pieces, two guards that would protect the back of his hands while leaving his palms bare. Naruto checked that they were secure and pulled the gray shirt on over the armor on his chest and shoulders. He then seized the GI top and pulled it on, securing it with buckles on the side, and tucking it into his sash and the belt underneath. The blonde moved around and was amazed at the feeling of such lightness. "I will most definitely continue doing my business there. This is perfection for my new status and job," Naruto thought as he pulled on a gray haori, with the symbolized emblem of a koi fish on the back, and where a breast pocket would be. He pulled both the ladies from the cabinet and securely attached them in place before rotating in what was left of the broken mirror in front of his bed. "Well, ladies, what's the last word? You look like some fairy tale hero who would save a princess from a monster." "Sister is right, haughty, I approve. But what does the fish symbol represent?" "Good question, what is a cute one?" "It is the symbol I will use to portray myself to my future lord and enemies." Naruto heard them both agree and said that it suited him. He stretched one last time and checked for any kinks or pulls, but found none, and then left for the academy. After 3 hours, Naruto stood in front of the academy and looked at it and then fished two things out of his pockets. One was a band that he used to put his hair in a rat tail, and the other was the village headband, which he wrapped tightly around his left bicep. He looked skyward and let out a sigh. Just as he was about to step inside, elder lady's voice stopped him. "Wait, cute one, I sense something." Naruto stopped and looked around, his hand disappearing into his haori to a small tanta that the sisters had bullied him into purchasing, for a point in the future where he could not use either of them. His hand wrapped around it gently and scanned around his body, tensing slightly. "What is it, elder lady? I sense a pair of old friends coming, very fast. He should be here after you meet with your sensei." "Are they a threat?" "Not to you, haughty, but when they do get here we will also have our formal introductions." "Why wait, I still don't know your names." "Good things come to those who wait, cute one." "Indeed they do, so please just wait till they get here for introductions." "Okay, my ladies." With this, Naruto released the tanto and walked into the academy, ready and waiting for what may happen in the future. Iruka glanced at the class and was about to tell them to wait when he noticed that, without anyone noticing except Shino Aburame, who glanced toward the window with a slightly raised eyebrow, Naruto had flitted in through the back window and taken the nearest seat. Iruka watched as Naruto took both of his swords from his side and placed them in the crook of his shoulder before closing his eyes and gesturing for Iruka to start. Using his big head no jutsu, Iruka grinned and instructed the class to quiet down. Naruto then smiled and started talking, saying, Well class, congrats on passing the exam, and for Sasuke to set a new record on the class of the jutsu of his choice. His broad smile caused the Uchiha to smirk arrogantly and the fangirls to sigh dramatically as they looked at their love interest. Today, you will be divided up among yourselves into teams of 3 and will receive your sensei, he said. Teams 1 to 6 are not very important. Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha will be on team 7. Yes. Sasuke and I are together. Grab that Ino.pig. When the pink-haired girl screamed, Naruto and Kiba flinched, and Shino calmed his hive by assuring them that he was not being attacked. Yes, Sakura, thank you for the humorous digression, but Naruto Uzumaki will be your team's final member. Kakashi Hatake will be your sensei. The class fell silent as Shino kept staring at Naruto, and to Naruto's delight, Hinata Hyuga exclaimed, "Eep!" To her dismay, no one was there when she looked around, even going so far as to peek beneath her desk to see if the happy blonde boy was there waving at her. A number of the other students nodded in agreement as Sakura said, Iruka. Sensei, I think you forgot that Naruto didn't pass and isn't here, so who's really on our team? Hinata, however, continued to look in strange places for him, including beneath her seat, at the area behind the desks in front of her, and in her desk drawer. She scrunched down in her seat as Iruka said in a harsh tone, Sakura, that is your team, please don't make me repeat myself. Now, Team 8 will be Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, and Kiba Inuzuka. Kurenai Uehi will be your sensei. Team 10 is left since Team 9 is still being coached by Might Guy. They will be Yamanaka Ino, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. Asuma Sarutobi will be your sensei. Everyone wait here for your senseis and they will take you for your first team meetings. Iruka concluded by giving Team 7 a dejected expression that Naruto picked up on, raising an eyebrow at his sensei before shrugging and heading out via leaf session. The Genin hopefuls then settled in for what should be a brief wait. Okay Junins, you heard Iruka-san, those are your teams, report to them, introduce yourselves, and inform them of their real test tomorrow, the village leader said as the Junin instructors in the Hokage's office watched the students through his crystal ball. Rejected. Asuma Sarutobi was the first to approach the Hokage and say, Hey Pops, should I check with their parents on what skills they have already? The Hokage watched as they all vanished as one. 3, however, remained behind to talk to the Hokage about their teams. That won't be necessary, their knowledge is all on file, the Hokage said with a smile and a shake of his head. Asuma nodded and moved aside to let Kurenai speak, but the Hokage spoke before her. Yes Kurenai. Chan, I am aware that you are newly instated, but I know you are capable and hopefully you can be a better teacher to them than others, such as Anko. Chan. Kurenai nodded, and Asuma and she left the room, leaving Sarutobi with Kakashi. Now, Kakashi-san, what do you require? Yes Hokage. Sama, I thought the Uzumaki boy had failed and I would have 2 team members. What exactly happened? The Junin asked, looking up from the small orange book he was reading and nodding as he put it away. He asked, giving the man a close look. The young Uchiha prodigy Hokage. Sama is there, of course, and the scarecrow Junin grinned back as he made his way to the door. That Kakashi is something you'll have to learn by testing them, but do be careful, your group may be a little spirited and more of a challenge than you bargained for. The Hokage grinned and turned to face the village outside his wide window. I was personally talking about Naruto-kun, but he'll learn that later. What else were you expecting? After all, I do have to train him in his bloodline. Kakashi then left, closing the door with a soft click. I do hope that Naruto-kun doesn't injure Kakashi too much, which might light a fire underneath our proud last Uchiha. Really, Naruto, give him hell. After 2 hours, 3 groups waited for their senseis in the classroom. They were about to grumble when the door suddenly opened, revealing 2 individuals. The 9 individuals simply watched the people with a range of facial expressions. The first was a woman with red eyes and dark hair who seemed to be completely encased in a long scroll. The second was a man smoking a cigarette, wearing a strange banner-like item from his Junin uniform at his waist, and sporting a trimmed array of facial hair. Only the Junin and the Aburame noticed the blonde in the far back of the room as the 3 teams glanced at the 2 Junin and at one another, wondering who went with whom. The woman with the scroll moved forward and exclaimed, Team 8 with me. The tracking team got up and started to walk away. Shino hesitated, turned to face the classroom, and contemplated whether to reveal the blonde. Then he shook it from his mind and simply bowed to Naruto, eliciting a strange response that made most people stare at Sasuke as if he had done something. The Uchiha snorted and turned to face the window again. Naruto gave the Uchiha a very disgusted look and cocked his head in return, signaling to Shino, who departed. This was somewhat surprising to the cigarette-wielding man. The three got up and followed the man outside, saying, "Team 10 with me." Shikamaru looked out the window and finally saw Naruto, while Ino glared at Sakura and Choji munched on a bag of chips. "How long has he been there? Because I didn't hear him at all. What's more, how long have you been there?" Everyone thought Shikamaru was just watching clouds and being lazy, but Naruto smiled and cocked his head in agreement. As his group filed out, Asuma watched this and turned to face them. As he left them to do whatever it was they were doing, he remarked, "Poor kids." Sakura pondered while glancing to her left and right. "I'm alone with Sasuke-kun at last." The blonde in the background raised an eyebrow as she blushed as she glanced at him and looked away. "Please let me know that's not what I believe it to be." "What's that, hottie?" "That won't be an issue, she hasn't even noticed I'm in the room yet." "Really cute one. How long have you been here?" "I think there is a girl portraying traits of fangirlism to the one whose hair is reminiscent of that of a duck's rear." "Don't worry, hottie. We're here to keep you sane. Just don't look directly in the girl's eyes." After shaking his head, Naruto took out an ornamental bronze pocket watch and looked it over. "About 4.5 hours now. Oh my god, and she's attempting to learn how to be a ninja. Your village will not survive. I agree, cute one, that this is not good, but calm down. Our friends will be here in a few minutes, and someone just walked onto the school grounds. At last, I can wait until then. I'll talk with you later." "Okay, hottie. Chat with you later. I also will speak with you later when we meet our friends." "All right then." Looking ahead, Naruto noticed the girl with the pink hair attempting to get a date with the Uchiha, who, for some reason, keeps turning her down. The girl attempted to grasp Naruto's hands, but he kept scooting farther away, causing his perspiration to drop. Naruto clutched his ladies as he watched the girl take a deep breath. "But Sasuke-kun, why won't you go to lunch with me after we meet our sensei?" He watched as the door started to be pulled back, and Naruto shook his head. When it opened, it revealed a man wearing a typical Junin uniform, save for a small orange book that Naruto narrowed his eyes at, silver hair that defied gravity, and a headband pulled down over one eye. When Kakashi looked at the three, he saw that Sasuke was making a great effort to avoid the reach of the unusually loud one, while the other was just watching and shaking his head. The pink-haired one asked a question as the two turned to face Kakashi. He nodded and watched as the blonde yelled out, bowed, and shook his head once more. "Are you our sensei?" he asked. She screamed, "Your late sensei." Kakashi's ears rang out, demanding that he kill the person who was causing the screams. Kakashi turned to face the group after shaking his head to get his thoughts straight. He vanished after saying, "I don't like you guys, by my first impression anyway. Anyway, you three meet me on the roof." Sakura and Sasuke stood together and said, "Wait. Did sensei say there were three of us?" Sasuke asked, his eyes widening as he turned to see someone else standing and making their way to the classroom's back door. He scowled as the figure shook his head, turned back to face the two, and left. After exchanging glances and watching the door close, the other two teammates ran out with the intention of apprehending and questioning the newcomer before he could reach their sensei. As the door of the roof exploded open, revealing a huffing and wheezing pair, Kakashi reclined on the roof's rails and read his book. He grinned as he glanced at them. Sakura said, "He was ahead of us." Sasuke looked at his teacher, perplexed, and asked, "Is your other member taking his time?" After cocking his head to the left and right and failing to spot anyone, Kakashi looked up to see his final teammate standing on a telephone wire. He found him while the two were still searching. The blonde nodded and stepped off the phone wire as the rest of the team sat down in front of their sensei. "Naruto, right?" The figure nodded. "Why don't you come down here so we can get introductions underway?" Kakashi's visible eye widened as he looked at the blonde. "He's got quite a level of speed and stealth to be able to get up there before his team got here and without me noticing." Kakashi asked the blonde, "Would you like to sit?" while his teammates cautiously observed him, half expecting him to vanish like a ghost through the roof. Leaning against one of the pillars nearest the group, the blonde shook his head. Kakashi clapped his hands and sighed. "All right, let's get to know each other. Everybody go around and tell everyone a little about yourselves." After the three exchanged glances, Sakura held up her hand and questioned, "Like what, sensei?" Sakura turned to face Sasuke, who was glaring at Naruto, who was staring back at the door as if he were ready to leave. "Oh, you know, name, goals, hobbies, likes, dislikes, just a little bit about yourselves. Could you go first, sensei? After all, we know nothing about you, and you can show us how it's done." As his team focused entirely on him, he cradled his chin in thought and said, "Well, my name is Kakashi Hitaki. I'm a Junin. I like some things, I dislike some things, and I have lots of hobbies." The two of them exchanged glances while Naruto gazed up at the sky. Sakura told Sasuke, who nodded. All we really learned was his name. After listening to Kakashi's rather pointless introduction, Naruto, on the other hand, was utterly ignoring the group. These friends of the women he would meet later were on his mind more. As Kakashi spoke, he was startled out of his reverie. All right, ladies first. He turned to face Naruto as he heard him snort. Sakura is also glaring at Naruto. As Naruto trembles, she glances at Sasuke and says, "My name is Sakura Haruno, I like." She glared back at him, only to have him stare at her as though she didn't exist. "I dislike Ino.Pig and Naruto," she said. When someone says they hate them, who isn't offended? She interrupts, "My dreams and goals are tied to the same thing," and turns to face Sasuke with a heart in her eyes. Wow, I have a fangirl. I'll have to break that to her. That idiot can't sit still, he's not Naruto, and he hardly makes a sound. Who the hell is that guy? I'm no longer a ninja, so who am I to judge? Would I have cared more if things hadn't changed? That was a really strange introduction for a kunoichi. Alright, next is Uchiha.san. Sasuke gazed at his sensei as though he were a tiny roadside ant. I am Sasuke of the Uchiha clan. Likes really don't matter since most things I dislike. My hobby is training. My dream? Dreams are just a word. Mine is an actuality that hasn't happened yet, and I will restore my clan and kill a certain someone. Sasuke said while staring at the ground with rage. He is an avenger, as expected, and I will fulfill my promise to Obito by supporting his family. Sasuke.kun is so amazing, cool, attractive, strong, and... Alright, I'm going to end this now because it might go on forever. Thus, the remaining members of his clan do intend to bring his clan back to life. It makes sense, but if he intends to kill me, he won't get around to it. Okay, last but not least. The fact that everyone in the group was waiting for him to say something bored Naruto. This, he thought, was simply their method of obtaining intelligence. Let's see. I am Uzumaki Naruto, my likes are my own, and my dislikes are perverts, arrogant overconfident people, and fangirls. My hobbies are dancing with one of two lovely ladies, learning seals, and establishing friendship with a few of the people I can stand. My dreams are too future-sighted and important to me for any of the people assembled here to understand. When did Naruto start acting so aloof toward people? It is somewhat frightful. I thought Pif Dobi was strong, and his hobbies are dancing and making friends. He told us outright that he doesn't like his whole team. I didn't know about the ladies or the seals, which weren't in any part of his file, but the rest is fascinating. What became of the tiny ball of energy that aspired to be the Hokage? This merits further investigation. Okay then, that's it for today. Report to Training Ground 7 tomorrow for your Genin exam. Sakura spoke first. You're not going to like what I'm going to say next, said Kakashi, before adding, but sensei, we already graduated, why would we take another exam? After half an hour. As he leaned against the pillar, Naruto glanced at the sheet of paper that contained the guidelines for his test. He was about to leave after finishing when he heard Sasuke yell. Naruto glanced back and considered a suitable response. Hey Dobi, not that I care, but how did you graduate anyway? He asked. As he started to walk away, he said, I graduated in a way only I can. Sakura screamed, Naruto. Baka, stop disrespecting Sasuke.kun and respond to him right away. Hearing footsteps, Naruto turned to see Sakura charging at him. As the women had taught him, Naruto examined everything right away. Her thumb curled into the palm of her hand, her legs were too far apart, and her body was not tensed enough to allow her to change or prevent a retaliation. The tensing of her upper body indicates that she is retaliating against my prodding of the Uchiha's pride. How does one disable a threat? Sakura struck out with her fist, but the blonde grabbed her other arm and held it out from her body, preventing her from moving, causing her to stumble forward as he angled it to the right. While Naruto held Sakura's arm and Sasuke watched in disbelief, Sakura attempted to break free. The Dobi had just rendered their teammates helpless after neutralizing a threat that he had hardly even noticed. In his disabling move, Naruto simply stood there holding her arm calmly before releasing it and letting her fall forward on her own. Sakura, I am no longer going to be attacked without me taking proper action against the attacker. However, seeing as I am not a ninja and I have adopted the lifestyle of a samurai, I will not strike back unless I feel you are a threat to me or my person. Which at your current level, I'd be in more danger of being attacked by a group of toddlers with blankets than yourself. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who grinned arrogantly. You Uchiha are perhaps of more threat than the girl here, but less than the toddlers outfitted with blankets. Good day, till tomorrow. The two ran over to see Naruto heading carelessly towards the training grounds after he hopped over the railings and walked to the edge of the roof. At this point, Naruto was following the ladies' instructions. Following their directions, He arrived at a training area that was completely covered in grass. He started to ask, "Should I look on the ground, ladies?" but was interrupted by an unexpected sound. There was a horse behind him. Naruto could tell this horse was a fine animal even though he had not seen many horses in the village. It was a proud and powerful animal, and he could tell by the way it carried itself. Its skin had a brown tint, and its black hair hung down from its neck and tail. Two things on its back caught his attention. One was a turtle, and the other was a silk bag. He made an effort to appear composed until the turtle spoke. When the turtle called him a boy, Naruto's surprise turned to rage. "Don't look at us like that, boy, we're not stupid." He approached the two creatures until he sensed the pulse of the swords. When he looked down, he saw that they were both glowing and becoming brighter until they were suddenly silent, as though they had vanished. He glanced around and saw that the turtle was conversing with two young women. Astonished, he said, "Ladies?" He felt as though a bull had struck him when they both turned to face him. Both of them were stunning. Although they had different figures and the same dark hair and porcelain skin, he realized that this was only a sign of their varying ages. He saw that the younger sister wore purple ribbons in hers and had blue eyes that were nearly identical to his, while the older sister wore a hair ornament and had warm brown eyes. They both approached him, grinned, and gave him a simultaneous embrace. As the elder stroked the horse's neck and the younger returned to the turtle, Naruto watched in disbelief. His emotions surfaced and he felt fear, sadness, and the idea of loneliness return. "Ladies, what happened? Are you leaving now that your friends are here?" he asked. Before the elder approached and took Naruto's hand, guiding him to their group, the sisters glanced at him and then at one another. Naruto exhaled as he took a seat across from the horse and said, "We are not going to leave you, cute one. We just took out other forms so that we could better introduce ourselves and our friends." The sisters looked at each other. Even though they were not in their sealed states, they were able to sense his feelings because of the bond they had formed with their elder sister during the conflict with Mizuki. The oldest held Naruto's hand and stroked it to soothe him. "No, cute one, we promised to help you after all. Why would we leave just as we had barely met in the moon cycle?" she asked. The horse whined, which Naruto interpreted as laughter, and the younger sister continued, "Yeah, haughty, after all you promised us a journey in which we could dance." Naruto asked, "Well then, sisters, why don't we begin the introductions?" And they both grinned as his feelings transformed into joy. "Of course, cute one, this magnificent creature that you see before you is named Palm. He is a commander of the horse summon contract, the first son of the summon boss, and he my and my sister's own favorite. His last owner was our last wielder Hojo till he fell in battle and Palm had to depart for the summon realm, but now that you are here he will tell us if he wishes to become your steed." Naruto glanced at the horse and then approached it and gazed into its eyes. The sisters looked at one another and gave themselves an inward round of applause. "Ladies, his eyes are like mine." As she embraced the creature's neck, the younger lady remarked, "Yes, haughty. Unfortunately, Palm is not liked in the summon realm due to his title and our favoring of him over the others, but that's because we just couldn't help but love the big baby." Naruto glanced at the younger woman before turning back to the ground and Palm. Then he turned to face Palm and said, "Palm?" The horse whinnied and turned to face Naruto. "Would you like to go for a run?" he asked. The horse nodded, and Naruto swung himself onto Palm's back. "You want me to get on?" he asked. Palm took a step and shimmered out of existence, interrupting the elder lady. "Okay, cute one, do be careful. Palm has an interesting ability that may shock you." After a minute, they emerged as a speck on the horizon, and then they reappeared with a gleam in their eyes. They kept doing this for a while until the turtle told Palm to stop playing around. Palm nuzzled its head against Naruto's leg while turning to face him. As the younger lady checked on Naruto, the elder lady grinned. Palm also lay down beside the group, and Naruto took his seat again. As the younger sister held the turtle at eye level with Naruto, Naruto observed, "Next on for you to meet is our teacher. This little guy is Gurren." Naruto and the turtle appeared to be on equal footing until, in a sudden appearance, the small turtle vanished and was replaced by a turtle that was about a small child's height and stood eye level with Naruto while he was seated. He wore a sash with the kanji forethought around his shell. Everyone in the group gasped as Naruto nodded and vanished, saying, "Now listen here, young one. I won't be disrespected. The girls get away with it because I helped raise them. But no leniency for you." They all saw Naruto holding Gurren up as he was raised into the air from below a moment later. Gurren became aware of this and increased his poof until he was as big as a small car. As the sisters begged Gurren not to crush their new wielder, Naruto flinched under the weight. One by one, Naruto released his restriction seals after directing his energy toward them. To the sisters' horror, Gurren was laughing as Naruto approached the ground more and more, but then the turtle felt a release beneath him and was launched into the air. As the sisters turned to face Naruto, they noticed a number of seals glowing a vivid blue. The girls covered their faces as the turtle crashed down, causing the area where Naruto was standing to be covered in dust. It spread to reveal something the girls hadn't noticed since they were young. Gurren was immobilized and held in a vice grip off the ground. Gurren started to laugh, and the sisters soon followed, and they were silent. "How long have you had this strength?" Naruto said harshly. "I just learned how to increase the power of my body with the restriction seals as I threw you into the air." Gurren's laugh vanished. "Boy, you are impressive. Not even the girl's father would have been able to catch me in that fall and hold me this tight." "What?" The turtle shrank back to the height of a young child after changing size once more and falling through Naruto's arms. The turtle knocked Naruto to the ground and yelled, "What kind of creature gave you the seals? Answer me." The turtle's face flushed. "My village leader gave them to me as a way for me to become a better samurai." The blonde nodded, and the turtle went pale. "You mean to tell me a human gave you these seals?" the blonde asked. The blonde gave him a furious look and said, "You were able to do that with an incomplete resistance seal." The turtle turned pale once more as he sensed the boy's anger. "Gigi is the best seal master in the village. I won't have you disrespecting him." "Dear Lord, this is bad. He suppresses his feelings and releases them whenever he wants to. Furthermore, he used a distorted version of the real seal to accomplish that." Gurren was startled by Naruto's icy gaze as he turned to face the sisters, who nodded. "Boy, please calm down and let me look at your seals. Do you think I can help you make them reach your full potential?" The turtle inhaled deeply before letting go of his feelings. "What will you do to the seals if I let you see them?" he asked. After examining his seals, the blonde had an idea. "Humans have never been taught the true art of sealing like we summon elder summons have. Therefore every seal on your body is a direct insult to me and the elder summons. So will you allow me to complete them?" he asked. "On one condition." The old turtle nodded, grinning. "I will let you." The sisters let out a gasp and hurried to stop him before Gurren raised a paw. "You take me as your student and teach me the true art of sealing." Naruto looked at the turtle and nodded. "Boy, this will make you more than just a samurai. You would become a sage as well, and you need a contract and a bond with the keepers of said contract." Palm nodded from where he was chewing grass and said, "What is a sage? But a samurai that uses knowledge instead of a blade. And I'm sure if I talk to Palm he will allow me to summon horses." Since the horses were one of the elder summons, Gurren nodded and stated that this would occur. After leaving with Gurren, Naruto let him finish his seals and asked him questions about the sisters, to which he hardly responded, telling him to ask them himself. They kept doing this until the sun started to set. After 2 hours, when Naruto returned, he saw that the women were riding a speeding blur he assumed to be Palm. They saw him and Gurren, who was sleeping on his head like a baby turtle because he was tired from the sealing. When Palm breathed on Naruto's hand while the sisters sat, he noticed a tattoo of a horse at rest with 3 bands around it. He couldn't ask Palm about it, so he asked Gurren. "Boy, it's a summoning tattoo. It's an honor blessed on those who are truly powerful summoners and is the one thing a human must have before becoming a sage in everything in title. Though I've heard that ninjas do their summon by blood, this is the pure summon. It's done by life energy, and when the creature comes it will take a formidable amount of your life energy or chakra as you're used to calling it to bring the creature forth. When it expels its essence the life energy will return to you. Unlike the stupid things that ninjas do squandering their energies. Now let an old turtle nap, I'm exhausted." "Yes, Gurren. Sensei, it's been a while since anyone called me that. I've always enjoyed the title. After all, turtles love to teach, so we learn just about everything possible in the world." Naruto sat across from the women and grinned. "Well, now the one I've been waiting for, ladies first." Before the younger girl turned to face Naruto, the two whispered to one another. She paused while adjusting one of her ribbons in her hair and said, "I am the younger of the sisters. I am Cayenne of the South. I was trained under Gurren Sensei and was being groomed to be the next guardian of the Southlands beyond the elemental nations." Playing with a piece of grass, the older woman bowed her head and gazed into Naruto's eyes as she said, "I am the elder of the sisters. I am Shinobu of the North." She added, "I too was trained under Gurren Sensei and was being groomed to guard the lands north of your nations. I am Naruto Uzumaki, an orphan whose life was changed by a hateful childhood because he was the reason a great demon was held at bay. But now things are changing as I will become a samurai, a sage of the Horse Clan, and the next pupil of Gurren Sensei," Naruto said softly, glancing at both women and clearing his throat. Together with the quiet horse and the awakened turtle, the three sat there. Naruto gave everyone a startled look before saying something. He looked to his right and saw the horse look at him and whine something that he took to mean "Don't be a fool." If you wish to be free from me, I can relate and will return the gifts you've given me. I now only wish I had gone first so that you didn't have to learn this way. When he turned to face the girls, he saw them approach him from either side, embrace him, and promise never to betray him in such a way before disappearing into the swords. His instinct was correct when he extracted both blades and noticed that their names were displayed on each blade. After expressing gratitude, he slid them into their sheaths. When Gurren Sensei dropped something into his lap, he looked up. In order to examine it more closely, he reached down and picked it up. It was a long knife with a bleached bone handle and a turtle shell sheath. While his new sensei was speaking, he was pulled from studying it. You know, I've given something to every student I've taught. Shinobu got that hair ornament made of blue diamond, and little Cayenne got those ribbons blessed by the Turtle Clan, but this is something someone in your position can truly appreciate. This knife will replace that ridiculous little Tonto the sisters bullied you into buying. The handle is made of the bone of the girl's father. It will repel any and all demon life force no matter how weak or strong. The blade is made from my teeth. It isn't the strongest material, but you'd be hard-pressed to find something stronger than it. The only thing I know that can dent it is the swords the girls inhabit. Now let's go home, boy. Palm, you head off as well. You're too big to hide, the little turtle yelled as Palm nodded and Naruto touched his locks. With the moon and stars overhead, Naruto departed for the village as the horse whinnied and vanished in a flash. Naruto didn't care that the path was dim and difficult to see. He now had individuals who would serve as his beacons of light along the path that Kami had outlined. Naruto was talking to his one and only true sensei while sitting in the trees of Training Ground 7. He had been arguing with his sensei about something that was concerning him and the changes that had happened in the past. Yes, Naruto? Gurren Sensei? Naruto asked, glancing at the turtle that had begun to ride on his right shoulder. Do you think that I am becoming too strong too quickly? I mean, I already was learning how to use Shinobu and Cayenne. And here I am learning seals and officer skills from you as well. Add in the Sage of the Horse Clan and I feel as if everything I do is putting too far ahead of my level? At this, the turtle sighed in wonder. The turtle patted Naruto's shoulder with one of his front legs and said, he is worried about becoming too powerful. While most in the village strive to reach this level, he is so worryingly holding. Amazing. Naruto, what kind of village do you reside in? A ninja, one sensei. Exactly, and you are a samurai. They will have powers that you could never to hope to be able to cope with. Without these said abilities you will be acquiring. So let that thought put your mind at rest, and if that doesn't, don't you think your Hans and I are a good enough judge of character to pass on what we know to a worthy individual? Think on this, Naruto. Naruto nodded his head and took in the perspective that Gurren Sensei had presented to him. He gave a nod and turned his gaze back to the tree openings where light was coming in. Thank you, Sensei. I forgot that I was deemed worthy and promise not to bother you in the future with silly questions. Don't say that, Naruto-kun. Gurren Sensei is a teacher before all else. How can you learn without asking questions? Gurren said. They are right, you know that's what it is they do. Point out flaws with utter tenderness to the individual. Naruto nodded as he saw Sakura walk and Sasuke in the clearing. Yeah, Naruto-kun. Questions have value, even silly ones. Sakura turned to face the jerk who, in her opinion, had almost torn her arm off yesterday on the roof. The insult that was hurled at him caused Sasuke to merely glare. Naruto didn't remember anything from yesterday's roof, which is unfortunate for his teammates. As you may remember, he had a very special night because he had to decide his future and acquire the names of his Heims and Sensei. He glanced at the two, shrugged, and took a scroll from a silk bag on his back that said, Officer Skills. 1. Basic Support Skills. He unrolled it and turned to go, reading it to himself before starting to learn the rudimentary samurai skills. His teammates are left perplexed. When Naruto thought he was far enough away for his teammates to not be spying on him, he paused and examined the first skill. Support Skill 1. Rally. This skill enables one to intensify their attacks beyond their typical range. Unlike its big brother technique, X-Rally. See Officer Skills. 2. For this technique, the technique does not permit massive bursts of skill because it builds upon what already exists. Naruto set down the scroll and read the activation instructions. As his sensei gave him the affirmative, Naruto remarked, it seems that all these basic support skills just require a thrusting motion with my sword arm. Naruto stepped back a few paces and turned to face his sensei, saying, very well. Going through the motions, he yelled, Rally, and punched a training log, only slightly cracking the bark with his sword arm. After examining the mark, Naruto used an unenhanced punch to strike the log, observing the same outcome. As his sensei examined it, he pointed out, Gurren Sensei, it doesn't seem to be working. No, the rally attack was stronger. Its attack caused a larger crack to appear. You will get at the level to advance to the X rally technique, I say, with about 250 more repetitions. Then we will proceed to the first of tactical skills. With a nod, Naruto assumed his starting position and proceeded to hone his rally skill. Gurren took a seat beneath a tree to observe his new pupil. They were both totally unaware that the test time was approaching. After 2 hours. Rally. Naruto threw his hand forward and kicked the tree viciously before he collapsed to the ground. He watched as a piece fell from the new tree and struck the earth. He understood that the thrusting of the sword arm had just exaggerated the scroll, and that any movement would be adequate to distribute the power to any part of the body. He discovered this when he missed his punch and kicked a pebble, embedding it in the bark of a tree. Seeing how much strength the attack had gained in this brief period of time made him smile. Gurren watched in complete awe. In just 2 hours, the boy can advance to the X rally level and distribute it throughout his body. Gurren sighed, shook his head, and walked over to his downed pupil. As a result, the blonde's body was fully restored and infused with fresh vitality. Well, Naruto, you really seem to have done a number on yourself, and the life energy signature I just detected shows your Junin leader has just arrived. So I am going to show one of the higher support skills I expect you to learn later on. Support skill advanced. X heal. He sat up and surveyed his surroundings with a body that seemed entirely different. He winced as he turned to face his sensei. I could have used that one growing up. The X heal cannot be used on oneself, only on others. It seems that I should make teaching you the heal skill of more pressing importance, if this is how you train normally. Naruto glanced at his sensei and replied, Gurren. Sensei, why couldn't you do this to all my future exercise sand? I could be ready to learn seals all the quick. The X heal is not a play toy. It completely fills and heals the body with new energy, but not without the price of being used in tandem, killing the body's own ability to heal itself in time. Now on this happy note, let us go and take your leader's test. The sensei to enter his haori resting in the inside pocket. At the same time, Naruto fled in search of Kakashi. After arriving on a tree branch, Naruto watched Kakashi explain it, and he grasped it right away. To the surprise of the Junin, he leapt down and landed right next to the group. Well, hello Naruto, I'm guessing you've heard? He grinned. They all took off after saying, then everyone get ready, steady, go. Naruto retreated a few feet, and his teammates fled into the trees. Naruto nodded and took a position. You know Naruto, I said you could go. Kakashi gave him a disapproving glance. Naruto merely beckoned Kakashi to start, saying, I am a Junin Naruto. I may be very capable in wiping the floor with you in taijutsu. With a sigh, Kakashi charged. Naruto started analyzing right away. He prefers to attack with a moderate amount of force at first, then increase it as he goes. How can I disable it? Leaning back and letting Kakashi's foot fly over him, Naruto punched his leg without receiving a response. Lunging short distance attacks until I get an opening and then use the rally skill. The cycloptic opponent hurled shuriken at him, and he jumped back. Returning to his calculations, he used his hand guards to bat them away. I didn't anticipate such an opening, so my previous blow was only a touch, and he dismissed it as expected. All I have to do now is give him a solid rally attack and hope the others get the meaning of the test. With curiosity, Kakashi watched as the blonde resumed blocking him after he threw a series of fists at a respectable pace. The blonde kicked the solar plexus, which he could hardly avoid. Kakashi sadly zoned out at this point, which was all Naruto needed. This doesn't make sense. His file stated that taijutsu was his best technique array, but it put him at low genin and he is attacking with high to medium chunin skill. Is this what the Hokage was talking about? Rally technique. As he unleashed a devil's barrage of rally. Enhanced fists on the Junin's chest, frightening him with their speed and culminating in an enhanced mule kick that sent Kakashi flying through the air. He roared in his head. His file definitely does not accurately portray him, as Kakashi used a log in its place. When Naruto noticed this, he and his companions fled for the forest. As he looked around for his teammates, Naruto thought, taijutsu done, next up kenjutsu. Kakashi was sitting in a branch a few feet behind his only female student, while Naruto had taken off after his sensei. He made a hand gesture before catching her attention, and he sighed as he heard her mention finding Sasuke. He grinned as she turned and was instantly flung into his genjutsu, saying, Sakura, look behind you. A flurry of leaves swirled around Sakura as she looked around. She was trying to piece together what had happened when she heard her name being called in a very weak voice, which made her look confusedly in its direction. Her Sasuke was there, looking like what most people would call a pincushion of shuriken and kunai. He was partially upright, resting on a tree, and his body was gushing blood. Only when she lost control and screamed did he reach out to her. Kakashi observed from a distance, silently wondering if what he had done was a bit excessive. As he watched her blonde teammate dash out of the forest with his katana drawn, he forced the thought away. Watching to see what the blonde would do to his teammate, he retreated. Naruto knelt beside Sakura and examined her health. She appears to have been knocked out by the sound of her own voice at such a high pitch, but she is fine and it appears that it was a false alarm. When Cayenne Haim's voice rang out, Naruto's mind was invaded. Naruto-kun. Can I kill her? She is a real bitch, and I promise that she won't feel a damn thing because I know how you don't like for things to suffer. Her older sister instantly mocked her for having such a thought. Shaking his head, he looked around for the Junin. Then he experienced a sudden chakra flare that indicated the casting of jutsus. To Cayenne's dismay, he sheathed her after he sighed. As he lifted the bitch and held her in a firefighter's carry, he snarled to himself and fled toward the chakra flare. Kakashi was about to test Sasuke's abilities after Naruto had discovered Sakura. After evading a trap set by the inexperienced Uchiha, the said Junin was thrust into yet another taijutsu match. He sidestepped Sasuke's fists and deflected a bruising sky kick by raising his forearm. He tossed the Uchiha heir safely away as soon as he felt the bells move. Kaden. Great fireball technique. He cried out as the Uchiha flipped through the air and made hand signals. Kakashi's eye widened in terror as the fireball rushed forward. In an attempt to determine the location of said ninja, Sasuke glanced at the last location of his teacher and swiftly searched all nearby directions. He was startled when he felt a hand pull him beneath the surface, leaving only his head visible. Sasuke-san, you were right, you are at a higher level than your teammates presently. But do not over-exaggerate your skills, you still need a lot of training. Your teammates are on their way, so when you are all regrouped come and give yourself another shot. Yane. After making this enraged comment, Kakashi vanished in a cloud of smoke and foliage. Naruto saw Sasuke's predicament and rushed into the clearing a moment later. He kneeled to the Uchiha, crossed the distance, and threw Sakura from his back without fanfare. Sasuke-san, as much as you would wish to defeat me and hold the bragging rights to such act, we need the combined efforts of you, myself, and the pink-haired Pain to come out of this test passing. Don't you agree? Sasuke nodded as he gazed in surprise at the purported dobi. Naruto smiled slightly, but not at the prospect of a truce but rather at the thought of what would happen next. Good choice, now let us get you out of there, Sasuke-san. As Sasuke prepared to be dug out by Naruto, he was startled when the latter flexed his arm and punched a hole in the soft earth, leaving him only partially buried. Sasuke drew himself out instantly. With a nod, Naruto turned to face the woman with contempt. Sasuke nodded and proceeded to wake Sakura, while Naruto spread his senses and soon found the cycloptic Junin at the beginning of their test. I'm afraid you will have to rouse her, as if I did it, I would have to listen to her gripe about me annoying her with the embrace of consciousness. He turned to see Sakura being helped to her feet and given an explanation by Sasuke about what had happened. Naruto looked at the two. We have less than an hour left. Normally a high-ranking ninja mission is supposed to be done in less time than this. This is however of vastly more importance as we are not a trained ninja squad but two rookies and a future samurai. So even though the situation is of just as much pressing importance, we cannot encounter the Junin without a plan. Naruto glanced around and motioned to the two to sit down. So this is my plan. As the three of them huddled together, the wind blew through the trees, and the blonde's discussion of his plan made his teammates smile and smirk. Unaware of a shadow clone concealed in the trees, they all bounded off after Kakashi's trail after he stood up. Glancing up from his orange book, Kakashi saw his team form an eagle formation, with Sasuke at point and the other two flanking him. As Sasuke charged forward, with Naruto protecting his blind spot and Sakura unleashing untold hell with reasonably accurate shuriken and kunai knife throws, he scowled through his mask. While Naruto appeared in perfect time with a sword cut that almost caused a small cut on Kakashi's neck, which would have resulted in his lifeblood leaking and feeding the ground in front of him, Kakashi leapt back to avoid Sasuke's impending lunge. As he barely avoids a kunai to his temple thanks to Sakura, Kakashi muses, perhaps it was a mistake to tell Naruto that he should come with me with the intent to kill. He was caught off guard, though, as Sasuke unleashed a fireball jutsu, which he leapt over only to have the Uchiha nail him in the chin. Sensing something was off, Naruto watched as Sasuke resumed his taijutsu attack. When he turned around, he saw Sakura charging with a kunai in hand, probably to aid her. Sasuke-kun. But Naruto stopped her and spoke. Sakura looked fearfully at her teammate and muttered something Naruto most certainly did not want to hear. Sasuke-san will be fine. Why did you abandon the plan? Naruto gazed at her in awe and questioned whether she would ever make it through combat if she arrived unprepared. I am out of ninja tools, Baka, he exclaimed. As his mind came up with a plan, Naruto said, "Very well, I know a way you can still help Sasuke-san, but it will require some rather unorthodox methods." As she cast hand seals, Naruto gave her instructions right away. In the middle of his battle with Sasuke, Kakashi stopped to search for his imaginary blonde pupil. As soon as he saw that he and Sakura were charging at him, his worries vanished because it appeared that they had altered their strategy. Until he realized at the last moment, he prepared himself for the worst. Clones, no footsteps. Sasuke returned to his relentless attack before he could do anything more to check his surroundings. Sakura asked, "What now, Baka?" as she turned to face Naruto, who was watching the fight with great interest. She would say that he was using his mind to dissect every fighter if she had to describe it. After turning to face her and instructing her to prepare her kunai, he instructed her to charge. Both of them did this, but Kakashi noticed and threw a kunai. As the kunai flew in the direction of his teammate's head, Naruto watched. As it got close to his teammate's head, he measured its trajectory and grabbed her by the back of her shirt, pulling her down and batting it away as it went over her head. Naruto then threw her at her sensei after saying something she couldn't hear. When Kakashi heard a scream, his only female student's forehead struck him in the stomach. The alarm rang as he landed, sending him flying backwards from the impact. He looked to his left to see his sword. Wielding student cut the bells from his waist and hopped back to his teammates. Perhaps because he had used the rally skill to transform his pink-haired teammate into the human equivalent of a battering ram and send his squad leader hurtling back 80 feet. Naruto noticed that Sakura was glaring at him while Sasuke and Kakashi were staring at him in disbelief. He raised an eyebrow at the Junin and his teammates. As he and his Heims were laughing uncontrollably on the inside, Naruto said, "What is wrong? We had limited time to achieve the possession of the bells. I only used a method that ensured I got them. Wasn't that the purpose of the test?" He could also hear Gurren Sensei laughing clearly from inside his Haori. Kakashi's perspiration fell when he saw how forward the blonde was. He pulled an orange book out of his pouch, smiled, and spoke to Naruto informally. With no idea of the blonde's response, Kakashi asked bluntly, "Well, you have both bells, Naruto, who else will you allow to pass?" Considering that each time he had high expectations for this specific student, the student had exceeded them. He heard bells ringing and looked up to see that Naruto had pulled out his wakizashi. He then threw both bells into the air, split the M evenly in half with 2 cuts, creating a total of 4 pieces, and threw 1 to each person, much to the surprise of the Junin. As he walked and leaned against the tree, Naruto remarked, "There you go. Now everyone has a part of the original bells and you can't pass any of us without passing all of us. He is really amazing." A ninja would have simply given one to whichever comrade was most useful, but he divides the loot equally to make amends and preserve his honor in its purest form. Kakashi glanced at the student who appeared to have completed the test easier than his peers. As he put his book away, Kakashi remarked, "Okay, you all pass, but only if Naruto can answer one question." Naruto smirked and raised his eyebrows, making the Cyclops ask, "Naruto, why did you split it equally between your teammates, yourself, and me?" He laughed, and the whole group was mesmerized by the sword wielder's pure, almost angelic sound. "You couldn't think of a harder question, Kakashi?" he asked. The blonde turned on his heel and walked away, apparently bobbing his head to a song that didn't exist. "Simply put, Kakashi, I did it because it was my choice, and I could." When his teammates turned to face their sensei, he simply shrugged. Their pervert sensei vanished in a flurry of leaves after saying, "What? I said you would all pass if he answered the question," which he did. "Report here tomorrow at 6 o'clock hours for your first mission." Desperate to beat the other's offer of a date, the two exchanged glances before vanishing after the blonde. Naruto perspired as he heard his assailant pursuing him, saying, "Naruto Uzumaki, you get your ass back here." To be honest, he was unaware that the bath was mixed. Furthermore, he was unaware that anyone was present until they interrupted his relaxation with the yell, "Pervert." It's not as though he hadn't considered telling the irate woman that he was welcome to enter the mixed bath, even though she was furious. His experience with women yelling that word was the only thing that stopped him. More were bound to follow soon after. As Naruto jumped on top of an awning and used it to trampoline himself to the roof above, he thought, "Hell, evil bitch didn't even have that nice of a figure anyway." Effective evasive maneuver. Naruto traveled through the village at record speed by using the building roofs. All he wanted was for other samurai around the world to apply this method to their journeys as well. With a sigh, he leapt through the air and soared through the open window he was aiming for, feet first. His graceful landing was transformed into a bow as he spun after landing. The various voices of the people who lived inside his head and on his body soon overtook him. That was a brilliant maneuver, Naruto-kun. I think that when you get far enough in Gurren Sensei's training, we should factor your natural grace into your sword practice. I give you a 9 out of 10. You did shift a little while in the air. Naruto gave a nod as Shinobu offered her he could always count on her to tell him the truth. Naruto sighed and thanked Cayenne for her input as well, saying, "My sister has no idea what she is talking about. My little hurricane of power got a 10 out of 10. She was completely enamored with any kind of challenging or fast-paced movement that he could perform. I sometimes wonder if she simply enjoys conversing with someone who doesn't get onto her." Feeling his sensei stir in his coat, Naruto pondered. He opened his coat side and looked into the pocket. With a feeble nod, the turtle asked, "Are you all right, Gurren Sensei?" Before lowering his head into his shell, Naruto heard a voice behind him and scowled before he called to his sensei. Naruto turned to see a boy with a ridiculous helmet of some sort and what appeared to be a monstrous piece of clothing around his neck. "Hey Raya-chan, is Grandpa in his office?" he asked. Since the only people with offices on this floor were the Hokage and his receptionist, Naruto silently wondered if this boy was sane. Looking at the swords by his side, Naruto thought, "I would know I robbed the place of one of its most valuable artifacts in that one night that my life turned around. Have I changed so drastically that I'm unaware of it?" As he fiddled with the ribbons that hung from Cayenne's guard, accidentally attracting her attention, Naruto pondered. He heard her cry in concern, "Naruto-kun, is something wrong? Are you injured?" Shinobu then spoke as well. She answered him in a tone that suggested she was on the verge of tears. "Naruto-kun, what happened? You're not this easily distracted. Have you been attacked? Or is it something else?" "I'm fine, Himes. Simply pondering what my life might have been like if we had never crossed paths." While the boy ran down the hall to the restroom, Naruto thought, "I probably wouldn't have been standing here today, or anywhere for that matter." It nearly escaped Naruto's notice that, aside from Iruka, the Ichirakus, and the Hokage, this was the only other person in the village who did not despise him. "Hello little Naru-chan, how are you today?" He held her life in his hands and left her unharmed, and she warmed up to him much more. Maybe if I opened up a bit more, he could emphasize, adding that they were practically friends. One does not, however, have my childhood and be carefree and optimistic. Like she remembered something, Raya-chan nodded and snapped her fingers, saying, "Fine Raya-chan, I have a meeting with Hokage Sama, since Kakashi-san is in the hospital because of our Genin grads test. Naru-chan, are you the one who used your teammate's head as a battering ram?" The accusation caused Naruto to perspire. As Kakashi-san burst out laughing, he said, "I would have put it more eloquently, but yes, Haruno-san was used in my endeavors as a projectile to distract Kakashi-san." This caused Naruto to raise an eyebrow in perplexity. She attempted to stop, but since it didn't seem like it would end anytime soon, she smiled and waved him in. She sighed as she saw the boy leave with that expression on his face. The one that demonstrated that he had witnessed more suffering than any shinobi in training. He is far too tense and needs to relax. Even though I haven't received any training, I can tell that he keeps himself in such a tense position, as if he expects to be attacked at any time. The poor boy. Naruto stepped through the doorway and rapped on the door. The Sandaime grinned as he looked up. The blonde nodded and entered the office, paused 3 steps in, bowed as low as she could, and held the position. "Naruto-kun, do come in. I was actually reading something about you, or someone that does fit your description." The Sandaime cleared his throat as he glanced up at the blonde's bow. Sarutobi watched as the blonde nodded and sat in one of the chairs, then laid his swords on the floor, removed his haori, and draped it over the chair's back. "Naruto, you may rise, please take a seat. He seems to have completely changed from the boy he was growing up, and I'm afraid what he might become in a few years with the influence of this village won't be pretty." Naruto turned to face the Hokage while seated. Sarutobi could see that he was slowly relaxing, but he was still tense. One would have to be blind to miss that. Sarutobi grinned to himself, hoping for some comfort regarding the troubled blonde. "Now Naruto, what do you have to say about your actions with Hitaki's test?" he asked. The old man laughed and he smiled, if only slightly, as he said, "I performed the best of my abilities, used everything and anything to its fullest potential, even if that included Haruno-san's abnormally large brow." Under the elder man's eyes, Naruto nodded and instantly chastised himself for giving the Hokage such a headache. "Naruto, while that was very entertaining, I must ask that you refrain from doing said act in the future." The blonde looked up, nodded, and exhaled deeply. "Now Naruto-kun, you did make this appointment. What is it you require?" she asked. Sarutobi felt a shiver run down his back. He could pass as Minato. Kun's clone because he looks so much like him. As Sarutobi noticed something he hadn't noticed before, the blonde said, Sandame. Sama. I humbly ask you that you permit me to no longer live in the apartment I currently have, and that being, if Kami willing, that you give me another that is vacated or perhaps empty. The boy had a burn on his neck. Like his pupil Jiraiya at a girl's hot spring. The burn was still carefully concealed without his coat, which would have made it impossible to see. The Sandame had hardly noticed. It would have been completely concealed if the boy hadn't moved so slightly to the left. The Sandame demanded coolly, Naruto, what happened to your neck? Naruto froze and, in an attempt to cover the burn, he only pulled his GI top closer. It was my latest gift from the villagers. They threw jars filled with oil at my back that burst into flame on contact. I was wearing recreational clothes and I was burned quite thoroughly because of my lack of caution. As the Hokage put it, why didn't you protect yourself? He was given another look by the blonde that made him think of his father, but this time it was the one he wore when he was honoring a promise, no matter how much it hurt. The blonde then closed his eyes, indicating that this was the reason he was here and why he wanted to leave his apartment. I promised not to attack the villagers in any way, Hokage. Sama. The old Hokage let out a sigh. Your new lodging will be in an abandoned house that was just recently put into the market, as its owner was very recently forcibly retired in his field. Naruto gave a nod. He nodded once more as he stood up, approached the Hokage's desk, and bowed to him. Nato furniture will be provided by the council, after all it is the least they can do. The Hokage nodded back. The Hokage handed the boy a sheet of paper and attempted to hand it to the blonde, but he watched as the blonde let it fall. Should you require my assistance, Hokage? Sama, I will be training at Training Ground 24 for the remainder of the day. Don't worry, Naruto. Your furniture will be waiting for you when you return for your sleep. Here is the location. When the door exploded open, he looked up to see that the blonde had lost the last of the relaxation in his muscles and tensed as he spun around and faced it. His hand grabbed the long knife he had strapped to the back of his waist. A tiny figure, shouting, Old man, I challenge you, rushed in and hurled a shuriken at the Hokage's desk. However, the boy from earlier did not anticipate someone standing in front of his target. He shouted, Hey move you idiot, while the shuriken was already in the air. In slow motion, Naruto watched as the weapon approached him. With a growl, he charged forward. He grabbed the shuriken out of the air and threw it back with 4 times the force, shocking the boy in the seasoned cage. The boy turned to see his error, but it was embedded in the wall behind him. The floor shook as Naruto grabbed the young child and slammed him against the wall, but it was too late. In an instant, Naruto had the knife out and pressed it against the boy's jugular. Naruto roared like a real beast as he finished, but his master interrupted him. You attacked the village cage, and you attacked my master. Why should I stop from pushing this blade forward and ending you in one quick swing? Naruto said. The Hokage was quite afraid for his grandson, but reassured Naruto. Naruto put the boy down. He is not an enemy. He is my grandson, and that by which he entered was the joke that he lays as a trap for me to keep on my toes. A game, if you will. Naruto has never looked this good in my life. Has he done this by suppressing his feelings? At a moment's notice, he can harness them and recreate them? After setting the boy down, Naruto yanked the shuriken from the wall, causing the boy to jump in fear. After dropping it at the boy's feet, he carefully lowered him to the ground, where he fell, shivering. Boy. The boy turned to face him, utterly terrified of the blonde. Naruto walked back to the professor and put his equipment back on after saying, for future experience, never stay in the same place as you were when you threw a weapon, as it makes it easier for those who can beat you to finish you off and continue on. Sarutobi gave a nod and jumped out the window, saying, By your leave, Hokage. Sama. When the Sandame turned around, he saw his grandson staring at his hands as though he was still in shock over what had happened. Konohamaru, you just felt what is known to ninja as pure killing intent. That is one of the things that makes some ninjas such dangerous opponents. The boy who just left is a samurai by profession. He is honor-bound to protect his code and his master, whom we have both learned is me. Do not try anything with him or he will attack before anyone can stop him. Konohamaru gave a nod and turned to see where the blonde had vanished to. With this, Konohamaru hurried out the door, prepared to face the blonde he had just met. Gigi, I will make that man respect me before the sun goes down. If I am going to take your job, I need as much respect as I can get. May God grant that his sensei does not irritate Naruto. After 3 hours, as the released forms of Shinobu and Cayenne sat on top of the log with Gurren Sensei, Naruto stood at the training grounds throwing viscous punches at it. His intention to teach Naruto his second support skill was thwarted when it was discovered that the boy's rage was sufficient to break the sister's sealed states. He saw the boy obliterate the training log with a rally enhanced right. To the surprise of the girls, it turned into sawdust and splinters. The blonde destroyed another training log using the same enhanced attack, and the turtle nodded, asking, "Sensei, what did he do?" "His rally doesn't do that normally. Did something bad happen while we slept?" "He has done what I was going to do after he finished the next support skill. He's achieved the point that his emotions jumped his training to create a much more deadly and destructive version of his original attack. In short, he created a block that allows him to use the X rally." Cayenne appeared somewhat frightened, while Shinobu looked on in fear that their wielder had unlocked something before their sensei's preparation. The turtle shook his head when he noticed 3 young children join the training area. "What should we do, sensei?" he asked. The girls nodded and moved to where Naruto rested his ripped and bleeding knuckles. "We can do nothing but watch, as we are his guiding light." Naruto looked up at the boy the Hokage had referred to as his grandson and what appeared to be 2 of his friends wearing ninja pouches. "Hey, you with the blonde hair." As he stood and approached an undamaged log, Naruto remarked, "What do you want, kids? I'm kinda busy." As the young children spoke, he made an effort to center himself. They didn't hear the blonde whisper, "We want you to train us. With your training we can become Hokage in no time." The call came from Konohamaru. "What did you say?" As Naruto got up and Cayenne came over with her sealed sword in her hand, he said, "I said no, you're all just kids and you haven't gotten a good grasp on the world yet. To teach you at your level would only hinder you. So please leave as I have no other business with you." As they watched, the 3 saw one of the attractive girls guide him through the katas, which were gradually getting stronger and faster. He abruptly left the kata and began using the blade in his own way. At first, his movements were clumsy, but they gradually got better. The children were still there, so he stopped. As Shinobu approached and handed him the wakizashi, the 3 shook their heads and he started to perform its katas. "I said I wouldn't teach you anything, don't you all have a bunch of other kids to mess around with?" They watched as he executed even more amazing maneuvers before finishing, receiving applause from the person who had given him the sword. He returned the blade and waved to the small children who hurried over. They all grinned as he led them to the closest group of trees and said, "Okay, I can't do a lot to prepare you guys with the training I have, but I will train you till my squad leader gets out of the hospital and I start missions." They all cheered as Naruto called the 2 attractive girls who had followed them over, and they stood beside him. "Okay, since I can't show you how to do my skills and I have no skill in ninja techniques except for the basic 3, we are going to do light contact sparring until your sensei finds you and takes you back to do whatever training you do before you began to bug me." The boy swallowed as the girl licked her lips. "Okay, Cayenne, you get Konohamaru," he said. The boy nodded as Shinobu escorted him a short distance away. "Shinobu, you will take care of the one. Udon was it," the boy said. "Okay, Moegi, you're right," he said, stretching all his kinks as the girl nodded. As he moved his hands into a basic martial arts pose, he said, "You get to go head to head with myself, try to not hit the ground too hard." As he threw her gently to the ground, she screamed, "What, sensei?" Naruto grinned as the girl leapt up and threw a backhand at him, which he caught and tossed her again after grabbing her thigh. "That was a dirty trick, sensei, I wasn't ready," he said. When she screamed, the others turned to see her charge, but she was unable to turn, so they clotheslined her. When the girl stands up and all the girls blush at him, Naruto laughs. He turns to see Moegi stopped in the middle of a punch and is redder than the Hyuga heiress. He lifted her in his arms and tossed her back into the air. After 4 days, Naruto and his teammates, whom he hadn't seen since the graduation exam, stood in the mission room. His actions had not gone unnoticed, based on the way the person with the pink hair glared at him. Thinking back on the past few days, he let out a sigh. Yeah, kind of spread out like a poison, and don't stop till you like them. He had decided to train the Future's Team 4 against his better judgment, and he had to admit that the little brats grew on him. Cayenne and Shinobu were happy that the time with the kids made him laugh more, and they loved his laugh without conditions. With girls, nothing is ever simple, they're confusing in every way. Additionally, he had spent time getting to know Ebisu, a unique Junin who was their true sensei. Although he fully understood, the man's heart was in the right place, but he wasn't that trusting of Naruto with the kids. That wouldn't, however, convince the kids to leave him alone. He had to acknowledge that the small creatures did have a talent for tricks that was comparable to his prior skill as a samurai. Additionally, he had moved into the new home with the K's assistance. Core. He had reduced the time to 1/4 of what it would have taken otherwise. He recalled the mayhem that followed the day he and Ebisu had taken them to get paint for the interior. He was now aware that he should never give the K to anyone. Core. Availability of paint. As Hokage told them about the open missions, he quietly laughed to himself. He learned the 4 fundamentals: Rally, Bolster, Gale, and Heal, and advanced in his officer skills training. His sensei forced him to concentrate on the others before delving deeper into any one of them, even though he had advanced to the point where he could attend the X-Rally. He was incredibly skilled with the Bolster technique, which makes low-quality kunai and shuriken useless by hardening one's skin and boosting defense. Even his swords couldn't pierce him because he could concentrate the technique's strength on his hands alone. His Gale was not as strong as he would have liked, but he was still practicing and would eventually make it useful. These final 2 techniques also infuriated him because he discovered that they lacked an X level. He vowed to use them until he reached a level where Guren-sensei would have to admit to a higher level, but he was still far from that level, at least not yet. Perhaps more annoying than his attempt to create a higher level was his last skill. He was still unable to use the heal ability. His sensei and his Heims had informed him that he needed a powerful medium in which to find the motivation to heal, but he could only heal such minor wounds that were essentially pointless. In order to see how he and Guren continued to diverge, Guren had promised to let him see the X-Rally. Additionally, he had advanced in his understanding of his Heims. When Kyan asked him to purchase some bonsai trees for the house, he found that her sword-like appearance undoubtedly added a modern touch to plant decor. As she taught him meditation techniques and more about sages she had previously known, Shinobu also developed a stronger bond with him. Her discussion of certain sages becoming overly motivated by their animosity toward others and discovering methods capable of destroying entire continents annoyed him. Additionally, he had been riding with Palm for the majority of yesterday evening. Before Kakashi had completed a chapter in his Icha Icha, they had traveled all the way to the border of the Fire Country and back. He assured him that he would see him again later. Regretfully, there simply wasn't enough time to see the horse. The sisters forewarned him that, in contrast to other summonses, he might remove his tattoo and prevent Naruto from mastering the full art of sealing if he didn't maintain contact with Palm. It wouldn't come to that, he assured them both. He had advanced to what the sisters both referred to as an intermediate level in their dances, and he was quickly learning how to incorporate his own moves into the routines to make them more manageable in a never-ending battle. As he used the sisters more frequently, he also developed the unimaginable ability to hear the songs of battle, which alarmed them. They told him that after he had told them about this new development, they would not permit him to continue practicing until he had advanced in his physical training. To his surprise, Naruto thought, "Overall, I have had a very busy past 4 days, and I think that if my life is going to continue to grow more hectic, I should perhaps take time out of my training to relax." As soon as he heard the doors open, he turned to watch the new Team 8. Each of them reacted differently after noticing him. Kiba snarled and moved away from Naruto as far as he could. Hinata flushed and trembled. Shino, however, caught him off guard when the Aburame approached and struck up a conversation with the blonde. He said, "Hello Naruto-san, first, good afternoon, Shino-san. I have heard from a trustworthy pair of wings that you have visited my clan house recently, may I ask why?" Naruto swore, forgetting that he had asked to speak with the head of the Aburame because he wanted to introduce some plants around his house and wanted to know if they would have any effect on the bug users' hives. Shino-san, I just wished to check something that I would introduce Tomi home would not affect your clan's partners. Shino grinned. Naruto sighed and then nodded, making the bug user smile under his coat. I appreciate your thoughtful actions toward my clan as a whole, but wouldn't it have saved you time by approaching me directly and asking for an audience? Naruto asked. As an apart from the fact I could not find you to request an audience, I had to take the long road. Indeed you did. Tell me if you will, what mission will this be for your team? Asked Shino. Our sensei just got out of the hospital and we have been training ourselves up until now. That is a shame. We are going to request our first C rank as of this afternoon. I was hoping that you could give us some idea as to what to expect, he continued. The pink-haired banshee screamed at the two, interrupting Naruto as he said, "Afraid not, my humming friend, I do not know myself what." The two turned back to each other and shrugged, then thought about the repercussions and went back to talking. "Hey freaks, get with your teams or we will miss our chance to get our mission." Shino nodded as his sensei approached him from behind. "Sakura is always like that, not that I have to remind you, as I am sure with your clan's excellent memory." As she left to talk to the councilman in charge of C ranks, she said, "Shino, we need to get our mission. Naruto, I suggest you get back with your team." As the bug user started to leave, Naruto remarked, "Until next we talk, Shino. As to you Naruto-san, if you would wish you could perhaps join me and my father at the tea shop on Thursday. Sadly not many are very sociable to us due to our bloodline." "Very well Shino, I shall meet you at the Golden Nest on Thursday for tea." He stood beside the Uchiha and watched as Team 8 departed with their mission scroll. He saw his squad leader pick up a scroll, and they quickly departed. Outside the village, on a farm, sitting on the lantern-lit barn's roof, Naruto used the rancher's provided hammer to quickly and forcefully nail shingles into place. As their sensei went over what appeared to be hand signals in what he likely believed to be a cunning way, he turned to see Sasuke seated next to him. He didn't need ninja skills, so it didn't matter to him. However, the Uchiha would make an inexplicable noise out of his mouth and glare at him no matter how many times he told the two that Kakashi simply asked him to stop lying. Sakura would just rant about how he was mistreating her and hurting her. Sasuke-kun. Just by looking at him. Naruto looked back at Sakura, who was still having trouble guiding the second goat into the pen. One of the rancher's sons had completed the first, but he vanished and went elsewhere to manage farm business. After letting out a sigh and driving the final nail into the shingle that was holding it in place, Naruto grabbed his given tool belt and descended the ladder to see if he could assist his less fortunate teammates. Naruto saw the goat pulling Sakura around the dirt pit where the goat still lived while she was on her knees. He approached Sakura and grabbed the goat's horn, causing it to come to a sudden halt. She hit back right away. Naruto simply dragged her and said, "Goat by the horn," as he watched it enter on its own. "Naruto, what are you doing? You have a job to do. Why are you interfering with my work?" He put his tool belt down with his coat and swords and gestured, "Because Sakura, I have finished my assignment." He didn't wear armor underneath his clothes today, but the armorers were cleaning it. He removed his GI top and grabbed the horns of another goat, tossing it on top of his other belongings. As Sakura finished staring blankly at his finished product, he took another goat's horns and led them both to the pen. Eventually, he had them all put away. When she turned around, she saw that Naruto had successfully secured the hatch pin, securing the remaining goats inside the pen. "Baka, how did you do that so fast?" she asked. "Because Sakura, I have lived and grown up fixing things on my own, and after seeing how they wanted it done, it wasn't hard to complete." Sakura was simply staring dumbly. Naruto stood directly beside Kakashi and walked over with Sakura in tow. Then he turned to Sakura, and Kakashi examined their finished product. Naruto visibly stiffened at this. "Very good, Sakura, you did very well." Naruto, on the other hand, "You forgot to repair the holes in the barn sides." Kakashi-san. Sasuke was supposed to the sides of the barn. Kakashi stared at the blonde, startled, as the Uchiha simply appeared to have stated that the Uchiha weren't supposed to be all-powerful. Ignoring the voice in the back of his mind that said, "Kill the prick," Naruto turned to face the fence, his eyes widening. "Naruto, I meant by saying that Sasuke is going to help me mend this fence, so in order to get everything done, I'll need you to get the sides done in time. One fucking board. To fix one fucking board, he needs assistance." After saying, "As you wish, Kakashi-san." Naruto grabbed a stack of boards and made his way to the barn. 6 hours later, when Naruto noticed the Uchiha standing on the roof of the barn he had just repaired, staring down at him, he held the final board in place. As he looked up, Naruto simply squinted at the first rays of sunlight. Naruto suppressed a growl as Sasuke accidentally touched a pail containing the old nails he had pulled out of the roof, sending it crashing down towards him. "So Dobi almost finished. Kakashi needs all of our help to get that one pair of steers into this barn I so brilliantly helped repair." When Naruto saw them coming, he did the only thing that came to mind. Bolster, and the skin of Naruto hardens without changing color or any other aspect of it. As he glanced down at the dust cloud, Sasuke heard tapping and noticed Naruto rushing along the scaffold, collecting the broken nails and washers. He glanced up at Sasuke, who had surprised him. Sasuke roared at this and leapt down on the scaffolding, but Naruto slid the board out of his way, causing him to fall into a barrel of water. "Sasuke, perhaps you should have your eyes checked. If you didn't see that pail, I don't know who knows how long it will take for your bloodline to take hold." Sasuke turned to see Naruto humming an unknown song while carrying the tool belt over his shoulder on his way back to Kakashi. Simply put, Naruto was relieved to have the bastard back. "I have the Uzumaki balance, screw karma. I get even if you mess with me, in other words." After 1.5 hours, Naruto's final task for the mission was to wrap wire around posts. In a few minutes, the sun would rise, but he would be finished, and they could go home. When he looked up, he saw a lovely girl with orange hair approaching him. He was stretched and squatting when he stood, and the girl laughed when he made some popping noises. She stood beside him, and he grinned. He accepted the jug of water she gave him with gratitude, took a swig, and then poured some over his head. She chuckled at his antics once more. She moved up to sit beside him after he grinned and sat on the fence. Naruto snorted and pointed out each of them, saying, "You seem to be the only one working out here. Why is that?" "Because the girl is next to useless," he said. pointing to the Uchiha as they practiced throwing kunai while the girl encouraged them. His finger curled back into his fist, leaving only his thumb protruding, and he gestured behind him, saying, "The pretty boy thinks he is too high and mighty to get his hands dirty on something that doesn't require him to make his hands into a bunch of retarded shapes. Then there's the scarecrow, and he's just a lazy pervert." When they noticed Kakashi strolling around with the ranch's leader and chatting animatedly about something, they both turned around. The girl asked, "What do you think he is talking to my father about?" Naruto took another swig of water after shrugging. As he gazed at the rising sun, Naruto remarked, "Probably writing my work off as the amazing accomplishments of the Uchiha. You know my father has been gone most of the day. His personal hand on the other hand has been watching you all, making sure that you don't mess anything up. He has seen your work all day. He is sort of impressed with how hard someone from a village can work." The girl took hold of Naruto's arm, and he shrugged. He grinned and turned to face her. "My father writes a flawless report. He makes sure those who did their work are rewarded for their efforts." He smiled and she flushed. "I don't care if I am chiseled out of my pay, just spending time with you has made this mission worthwhile." She stood up and instructed him to look at the goat pen's front, where it appeared Sakura was attempting to eject a lone individual. She stopped him just as he was about to go over after jumping down. Naruto watched as Sakura removed one hand from the goat and unlatched the pen gate, only to have the whole army of cuddly goats charge in. "Wait and you'll feel better, I promise." When Naruto saw his group, he and the girl laughed. They tried desperately to stop the stampede, but were knocked down in the confusion. He noticed two goats fleeing while carrying what appeared to be an orange book. After giving him a cheek kiss and grinning, the girl slipped something into his pocket and hurried back to the farmhouse. The large man who had demonstrated how everything was to be done gave Naruto a wrapped bundle as he and his group were leaving the ranch. The man who shrugged caught the attention of the other members of the team. He claimed that it was from the boss's daughter, who would visit him when they visited the village to sell goods at the end of the summer. Naruto nodded to the large man, who then gave him a back pat before leaving. Naruto shrugged and said he would find out later when Kakashi asked him what was in the bundle. Ignoring the blonde, the team focused on their pay and the fact that they would never return. Naruto was merely humming, the words from the note she had tucked into her pocket reverberating in his head. "My attractive ninja, I hope to see you when I return to the village at the end of the summer. If not, I'll try to get father to ask your team to assist once more so that we can see you. I pray that you never lose that exotic laugh or that warm smile. The world cannot stop you if you continue to smile. Love." Shake it Lena. As the Konohamaru Corps, Naruto sipped tea on his front porch. Played tag with one another while running around the yard. Normally, Ebisu would have had the trio today, but the Hokage gave him a task instead. The teacher then approached him directly to ask if he could keep an eye on them until he got back from the capital. Since it was his day off and he had promised Shinobu, Kyan, and Guren Sensei that he would not train them today, Naruto had consented. With a heavy heart, he had declined their request that he spar and train them. Then he advised them to use this opportunity to figure out how to train themselves. At this suggestion, they jumped right in and began playing a game of ninja tag to practice endurance. Glancing to the right, Naruto noticed Kyan honing her blade. Guren Sensei was a real hardass when it came to unwinding, but he had offered to do it. Shinobu was strolling through the gardens, rubbing her hands against the bushes, when he sighed. Her hands severed the parts she touched. He had discovered that they could still highlight any part of their bodies with the razor sharp edge of their sealed state when they were released. You aggravate them with a quick slap, which is probably why no one had a long-term relationship with either of the Heims. As he went pale, Naruto thought, "You're missing the most valuable part of the male anatomy." Using this time, Guren Sensei organized a chess game from a nation other than Naruto's own. Big enough to move the pieces, Naruto groaned as the turtle poofed. Naruto simply accepted that he would lose to the elderly turtle again. His sensei always began the games with the same strategy. He can effectively open up a whole board for an offensive by placing pawns in a diagonal line on one side. A pawn, a bishop, a castle, 4 more pawns, his other bishop, his queen, the other castle, and finally the remaining pawns and knights were among the pieces that Naruto started to lose. He simply tipped over his king after glancing at the board. He muttered, "Smart-ass turtle. Sensei." The board then flew through the air and struck him in the head. He pivoted and gave his sensei a fierce look. Naruto glared at the turtle, which was staring off to the side. The turtle noticed Naruto's glare and looked up in surprise. Naruto shot his sensei a bitter glance and asked, "Oh, would you like to play again, my student?" When the turtle noticed that the current pot was still half full, it scowled and said, "No Guren Sensei, I had better go put on another pot of tea. Naruto gave the turtle an unflattering smile and asked, "Why is that?" Naruto grabbed the pot and slammed it against the turtle's head after saying, "Why sensei, I thought you would never ask." When Naruto ran into his house, the turtle let out a startled cry. After the tea set in, the turtle grumbled that it would be difficult to get his shell back to its natural shade. He was tempted to go to the boss summoned size and crush his pathetic apprentice after hearing Naruto laugh from inside the house. Naruto practically leapt out of his skin with laughter as he entered the kitchen. A viper was hissing at him while it sat on his floor. It lunged and slammed its fangs into his hand as he scowled and reached out to grab it. Naruto grabbed the snake and threw it into the air, then slammed a kitchen knife between its eyes as the snake squirmed back in agony and attempted to flee. The snake, of course, ceased to move. Naruto examined the bite mark on his hand. With no skin break and a tiny pool of venom on his hand, he thought, or make that try to bite. He glanced out the window and waved to a group of villagers who appeared to have seen a ghost, saying, "Kami, these villagers get stupider the more times they try." Then, as they flung themselves over the estate's wall, he closed his kitchen window. Because he was afraid the sisters would hear the battle tune, Naruto only hummed to himself when he was by himself. After throwing the shards of the previously broken pot into a drawer with more shards, he proceeded to make another pot of tea. He collapsed in his sitting room and yawned as he heard the children enter the house. With a smile on his face, he carried in 7 mugs of tea. He observed each of them examining their wounds and bruises. He handed them all mugs, scowled, and then carried the others out to his sensei while leaving 2 on the table for the sisters. As Naruto rolled his eyes and placed a paper umbrella and straw in front of him, his sensei raised an eyebrow at the mug. This made his sensei smile. As he watched the girls pass by and enter, he also took a seat. He was taken aback when Shinobu bent over and gave him a forehead kiss before going inside. His sensei laughed at him, and he simply blushed and stopped breathing. He shot back, frowning at his sensei. "Not like you have to worry about women eyeing you, sensei. Your wife is still in the summon realm, waiting to beat your ass as soon as you complete your goal of teaching 100 disciples." The turtle immediately ceased to laugh. When Naruto noticed someone opening the gate to his estate, he gave the turtle a fierce look. The Uchiha was the one. He had a scroll in his hand and was smiling. He kept going until he reached Naruto's front step. With a sickening sound, Naruto cracked his neck and narrowed his eyes at the Uchiha. The cracking sound made Sasuke go pale. He paused, rehearsing his face as he gave the blonde the scroll. Sasuke continued to smirk as he said, "Kakashi said to meet him at the team training grounds for special training." Confounded, Naruto turned to face the Uchiha. Naruto then shouted into the house after he nodded. He said, "Shinobu, I have to go to the training grounds with my team." He hoped she wouldn't pay attention, but she didn't. She appeared before the window frame, and he saw it. Her expression was one of surprise upon seeing Sasuke. She closed the windows and bowed her head. Sasuke was quite surprised by this. "I believed Naruto to be an orphan. Who is that girl, then? Is she his lover?" As they made their way to the training grounds, Sasuke had this thought. Sasuke simply stared around before posing a question, and Naruto remained silent. Sasuke questioned, "Hey Dobi, who was the pretty girl at your house, is she like a family member or something?" in the hopes that Naruto would respect his name as much as he did everyone else. The conceited Avenger had no luck as Naruto simply turned to face him and gestured for him to stop talking while continuing to walk until they reached their destination. Kakashi looked up at Sakura as they conversed while standing in the center of the training area. "Oh, there you are. Good. Naruto, I need you to train with Sakura. You will both be doing teamwork exercises till I finish with Sasuke and one of you switch with him." "Okay, get to work." The two exchanged glances and left. They came to a halt a short distance from the 2 ninjutsu practitioners. In an attempt to take charge of the exercise, she said, "Okay, Naruto, since I am clearly the smarter of the 2, we will go with my plans." "Right. Sorry Sakura, but when it comes to battle you are our weakest link. Goodbye. So while you are the smartest in book smarts, battle is my forte and I will choose this exercise, understood?" Sakura screamed and glared at the blonde. Naruto simply looked at her and decided that diplomacy was necessary. "What do you mean you're smarter in battle? You lost every spar you had in the academy. You should just listen to me and we can get this over with." She was about to yell that she had just declared herself in charge when Sasuke approached and yelled, "Fine, you are in charge, but I will only do what I think is right in a situation." Apparently bored, he said, "Sakura, your turn, I'll spar with the Dobi." With stars in her eyes, Sakura simply nodded before sprinting to where Kakashi started demonstrating her hand signals. "Why am I referred to as the Dobi by everyone? I am not a weakling in any way. I am quite capable. All right, aside from their genjutsu and ninjutsu abilities, but that's just because of my line of work. Naruto thought, oh, never mind, and positioned himself opposite Sasuke. When Sasuke pressed his hands together and created hand seals, he was prepared. Oh no. After 2 weeks, Naruto sat apart from his team while they continuously practiced the methods that Kakashi had demonstrated to them. As Kakashi assisted Sakura in extending the range of her genjutsu, he stood. As he performed flawless Kaden techniques one after another, Sasuke occasionally grinned. Naruto resisted the urge to snarl and resumed his handstand push-up routine. With the exception of sparring with Sasuke, he totally neglected his team during practices because he was so far behind in the physical strength needed to continue training with a sword. Though it wasn't an X level, he had finally achieved the desired level of proficiency with the Gale technique. He discovered that concentrating on his entire body, as he did with the X rally, made the move easier to execute. By doing this, he was able to jump at a speed that was comparable to his full dance speed thanks to the technique. But the heel still didn't work for him, and Sensei claimed that until he learned heel and X heel, he couldn't learn any of the offensive classes. He continued to rocket up and down in the vertical push-up, letting his frustration at his abilities trickle down to his muscles. He then executed a flawless roll into a bicycle technique, putting strain on his leg with each rotation. Kakashi observed his blonde pupil undergoing his strenuous physical training. This is not good. I assured the council that I would provide Sasuke with special training, but Naruto isn't what his file claimed, and he's progressing at a rate that dwarfs Guy's miniature version of me. He must be a member of a regiment. The blonde said, "Hey Naruto," as he rolled tightly upward and landed on his feet while glancing at Kakashi. Kakashi felt that gaze on him and asked, "What is it, sensei?" He felt as though he was being stared at directly. He inquired, "What do you need to help with your skills?" in an attempt to unravel the mystery before him. After giving the sensei a quick glance, Naruto shook his head and stumbled forward into one. Armed push-ups, muttering, "More time to train away from these vultures." With a sigh, Kakashi approached the blonde. Kakashi pulled out his icha and stopped, placing his feet to the blonde's right. Naruto shook his head and looked up when an idea suddenly occurred to him. "So what do you need?" he asked. "I need a way to blow this entire hellhole of a group training regiment into the ground so that I can train like I am supposed to," he said as he got up. "Naruto, if you don't ask for help, then you can't fix this problem you have." Kakashi sighed as he turned to face the blonde. Naruto tensed up until he was almost hypertensive. Glancing up from his book, the Cyclops answered, "What problem would that be, Kakashi? Sensei." He waited for the blonde to respond with a technique he would like to learn. "I don't want to say this, but your problem is your abysmal skill in genjutsu and ninjutsu. I am an expert in one but can't help unless you ask and want to learn." He was surprised by the next statement. As the log's alarm went off and Naruto got to his feet, he remarked, "If you're waiting for me to admit that I'm useless and that I need help in those areas, you'll be here till we both die of old age, and I believe I've got the best chance of lasting with you so much farther on in years than I am. Till tomorrow, sensei." The sensei watched as his pupil walked off the training field, his hands in his pockets. The whole village would have witnessed the blood gushing from the Haori's hands if they hadn't concealed them, so Naruto was relieved. Making a mental note to ask his sensei to clean the bloodstains off his coat and apply weight seals, he quietly walked home. Later that evening, Naruto was lying on his room's floor, rummaging through a little puzzle box that Lena, the girl, had given him. After all this time, he had only completed 3/4 of the image slides that were on top of the box. Gazing up at the hanging ornament his sensei had made for him, he let out a sigh. The kanji for sleep was engraved on a wooden carving of a koi fish. He had made it to ward off demons, according to sensei. The fact that Naruto's demons lived in both his past and the seal on his stomach was his issue. Yay for me. I get to live a wonderful life and be a happy, caring person. Indeed, before that occurs, hell will be transformed into a ski resort. Ha 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 ha. Naruto leapt to his feet and surveyed the room. It sounded like a beast laughing, and he swore he heard it, but it was closer and deeper than he had anticipated. Since it was sealed by the best ninja seal master this village has ever produced, it cannot be the fox. Naruto glanced up at the koi fish, which appeared to be glowing with seals, and thought, "It just can't be wreaking havoc in my mind." He wiped the perspiration from his brow and remarked, "I would be willing to bet my house that little thing isn't supposed to do that." After that, he reclined on his futon mattress. Unaware that he had been holding a deep breath, he released it. Naruto rolled over and fell asleep after saying, "I will speak with Sensei tomorrow and see what he thinks I should do about it." The following day, The girl's gasps and his sensei's curse were Naruto's rewards when he entered the sitting room. It was obvious to him that he looked as awful as he felt. He pivoted and gazed at the wall mirror. Naruto had a restless night and had woken up multiple times. Several of the visions of war and bloodlust that had plagued his dreams were of him causing them, but it wasn't just him. Additionally, there was this thing that had always hovered over him. It was dressed in red armor, the same armor he kept hidden. He killed the horse and its riders with a single blow using a huge sword that was at least as large as the ones they used in the old days of warfare. Because of the turban and the Oni mask covering his face, he was unable to see the face, but he had the uneasy impression that he knew what it looked like underneath. His feelings were indeed reflected in the mirror. The shadows that surrounded his eyes were dark and unfathomable. He blamed the drab lighting in the house for his hair's slightly paler appearance. The paleness of his skin now made his whisker marks much more noticeable. He had deep cuts here and there that were matted with blood, as if he had scratched himself during the night. His eyes were so dark that he was unable to identify them. Kami. He turned to see his sensei, who was the size of a sea turtle, and the girls. With a weak wave, he sat down at the table. Kyan was staring at him as though she was afraid he would snap. Oh no, Shinobu, he couldn't stay here for that. The expression on her face indicated that she was going to cry. Something frightened him as he turned to face his sensei. His sensei had a pair of brilliant golden eyes that were typically brown. Unflinchingly, he glanced back at the orbs and felt them sweep across him, settle on his stomach, and then return to normal. He was instantly so worn out that Naruto, who had been on the verge of exhaustion and had been forced past it, wanted to pass out. When Naruto heard the sensei say, "Naruto-kun, can you hear me?" he gave a nod. The boy nodded once more and asked, "Can you move?" His sensei's voice sounded like music soothing his nerves as he asked, "Do you wish to speak to us about what happened last night?" As Naruto attempted to remember, he was instantly hit by flashes of his dreams. He moaned in a frightening and heartbreaking way, causing the other people in the room to look sad. He stood up and shook his head. The old turtle nodded and asked, "Sensei, is the bath still warm?" As the blonde staggered out of the room, his sensei nodded and said, "I think I need one." When he turned to face Shinobu, she walked away to follow him. After discovering that the bath was still reasonably warm, Naruto filled it with fresh water. After taking off his clothes, he slid into the clay tub and sat on the bench. He made an effort to organize his thoughts, but he was too exhausted. He fell face first into the water, giving up on trying to stay sitting up. Adam Lambert's Mad World is the opening song. There was nothing for him to see. It was all black, but he could hear voices in a panic, speaking urgently, and a loud cry, followed by what sounded like 1,000 feet marching. He looked around after opening his eyes. This bathroom was definitely not his. He did recall that it wasn't a vast, blood-soaked plain. Instead, he saw dead people and vanquished weapons all around him. Something blurred into his chest and shrieked through the air. He looked down to see a sword protruding, and even worse, he saw what was holding the grip. The Oni creature he had seen attached to him loomed over him, its clothing dripping blood, but it was unharmed. He felt his entire world retch as it snarled and twisted the sword in his chest. Suddenly, everything vanished in a rainbow of white and green lights. He grabbed the voices with all his strength when he heard them again. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw that his house's 3 other tenants were staring down at him. Feeling heavy, he tried to put words together. "Shush, you are all right, cute one. You just fell into the water and almost drowned. We used a combined sequence of heals and brought you back," Shinobu said to him. Naruto ripped the sheet from over his stomach and stumbled forward into a sitting position. He sighed and lay down, finding no wound. "Naruto, we are going to send Kyan to get the Hokage to check the seal on your stomach, while Gurren Sensei is going to place a repression seal to block out whatever it is you saw." "Okay." Naruto sighed and murmured, "Can't forget, must not forget, need to know." Their sensei, who was observing the boy closely, caught Shinobu's attention. He closed his eyes and shook his head. Gurren Sensei then sang a song while a seal appeared on the blonde's chest, glowing red before settling between 2 of his body's resistance seals. "We cannot go against his wishes. If he says it is to stay, it must stay, no matter how much it does make us want to remove them." As Kyan roared to the Hokage tower, he and the boy rested by the boy's side and he said, "This is the best I can do for him till I get a better understanding and begin to help him reach his psyche in his sage training." A week following the incident, Naruto looked around his room and sat up. He was relieved to have woken up and recognized the decorations on the wall. He last recalled passing out after muttering something to someone. When he stood up and changed into his regular clothes, he noticed that his body was a little stiff and that his face had returned to its usual appearance, with the exception of his eyes, which were still blue but slightly darker, serving as a clear reminder of what had happened. Someone knocked on the door as Naruto was making his way to the kitchen through the house. He sees Kakashi when he opens the hallway after crossing it. As he looked past the boy and mentally assessed the blonde's house, Kakashi said, "Hey, Naruto, the Hokage told the team you weren't feeling well, but he said you should be fine today, and I wanted to tell you that we have our first C rank today. We were going to have it earlier, but you got sick and we took the extra week to train. So are you up for it?" When a voice interrupted him, he turned to see his sensei approaching him. "Be right back, I need to get some supplies." He then closed the door and ran around the house, picking up the swords, his scroll over the officer skills, and other accessories and sundries. "Naruto, where are you heading?" the turtle inquired. Naruto searched the area for his heims but couldn't find any. "Where are the sisters?" Naruto questioned, but his response caught him off guard. He heard Shinobu say, "We are here, Naruto-kun, and we're as ready as you are." Kyan's voice called out, "Yeah, we can't let you go anywhere without us or we miss everything exciting." "Okay, that's everyone but you, sensei," the turtle said, grinning at the boy who seemed to be returning to his normal self. Naruto simply laughed and said, "When does that ever happen, sensei? Lighten up," he called as he walked off with Kakashi and all of his required supplies. "Naruto, it is foolish to be so ready for a mission. What if you were to be attacked?" After 2 days, as the group gathered around their client Tazuna, they noticed Kakashi battling a man with a huge sword on his back and his face covered in bandages. The man then made a hand seal and blasted Sakura off into the distance. "So Sharingan Kakashi, you're here, explains why the Demon Brothers failed, and you have some interesting looking brats with you. The blonde one seems to know how to use those swords of his, and by my guess is the duck's landing pad is the Uchiha." As both of his students stood guard over Tazuna, who was carrying the unconscious Sakura, Kakashi said, "Sasuke, Naruto, be careful and just hold him off momentarily. He's an A-rank missing ninja, Zabuza Momochi, and 4th seed of the 7 swordsmen of the mist." He heard his sensei say, "Naruto, remind me to up your weight seals after this." "Why, sensei?" "Because every time you try to make a joke about how nothing ever happens, bad shit happens." As he and Kyan removed 6 of the missing ninja's water clones, Naruto nodded. After witnessing the Junin give Kakashi a hard right, he turned to face him after going down. The tall bastard used his enormous cleaver to bat Sasuke away when he attempted to attack the Junin, whom he believed was distracted. "You're just a kid, how the hell do you explain to me that your skills will save you from my Kabiri Hochu?" the Junin growled, glaring at Naruto. Naruto gave the name head-chopping cleaver a dull look. As Naruto changed to Shinobu, he observed. The Junin snorts and tears his sword from the ground, saying, "Well, this is coming from a fellow swordsman. I can't let this chance go unpassed. After all, not many people I have met in Konoha are proficient with swords." The ninja drew his sword across the floor and said, "Well kid, before I take your head off, why don't you tell me who has the guts to take me on?" Naruto saw Kakashi start to stir. As a perverted Sharingan user awakens and uses a stolen jutsu to nail him, Great manages to fend off the demon of the mist. "My life is a complete mess." As Naruto heard the girls concur, he thought. Then he mentally prepares an officer skill. Zabuza was interrupted when the blonde child appeared in front of him, and the child's foot slid under his chin, sending him flying back. "Now brat, let's see what you go." Zabuza's eyes widened as he looked up from the floor at the child. As the Junin vanished and then reappeared with a cleaving slice that Naruto blocked, Sakura skidded back to the distance she had been thrown, and Naruto remarked, "Yeah, I get that look of underestimated ability a lot." He thought, "Shinobu. This might be harder than I thought." She answered, "It appears that this will be your first opportunity to truly dance since the scroll incident." This thought made them both smile, and the swordsman felt a chill run down his spine, as Naruto lunged and materialized directly beside him, sending Zabuza reeling back in a shower of sparks. He thought, maybe this is not going to be so easy. Gosh, I should have listened to Haku sooner. The air was filled with the sound of metals clashing. Slash marks from past attempts to harm the other character surrounded the 2 characters standing in the center of the clearing. There were significant differences between the fighters. One easily cleared 6 inches, but the other was a head shorter. While the other wore nothing but pants, the smaller one was dressed in an ensemble that exuded judgment and exact measurement. While the other used more conventional weapons, the larger one carried a blade that one might assume was used to cut lumber. Despite their complete differences, these 2 figures had one striking similarity. Both of them engaged in fierce combat. They engaged in a complex dance of strength, speed, and unquestionable skill during their battle. The bigger one locked the smaller one in a struggle of strength and kicked him away, stopping their dance. Oh no, at his age, I wouldn't have been nearly as strong as this brat. When I think I have him beaten, he is laying some even more powerful ones in and taking my attacks as if they were insignificant. We've been at this for a while, though, and the little bastard is most likely near death. As he turned to face his opponent, the black-haired one thought, shame, this is the first real challenge I have had since those Kiri Hunter ninjas. Using his sword as a crutch, the combatant was rising. How are you, Naruto-kun? As he stood up and stumbled slightly, Naruto heard Shinobu say, you're starting to slow, and he is getting in more blows with that monstrosity of a weapon. Shinobu Haim, who is wielding that sword as though it were made of paper, is incredibly strong. Additionally, he is able to see through all of my attempts to make him relax. Even after training with Cayenne at half her strength, Shinobu never released a seal, so he remained silent. I might need to remove my resistance seals if I am going to keep this up any longer. We cannot allow him to do this, she told her sister, who had been considering the same thing. What if he releases the seal Gurren Sensei put in place? They both agreed and attempted to communicate with him, but discovered that he had disconnected them in order to focus more on the battle. Before they subsided and Naruto stabbed his wakizashi into the ground, Zabuza tensed as the boy started to glow through his clothing with blue markings. Then, as Zabuza hopped from one foot to the other, he began to worry him. As he tore his sword from the ground with a flourish, the blonde remarked, much better, now Zabuza.san that the kid's gloves are off, we can get to our real match. Zabuza waved his own sword with equal flourish and flashed a smile that was hidden by his bandages. After saying, fine kid, let's get down to business, they jumped at one another. Zabuza brought his sword from his right side and began. Before launching into a stab, Naruto used his own to block and push away. Zabuza pushed the blade away and punched the blonde in the jaw, grinning once more. The giant launched another round of slashes at Naruto, causing his jaw to dislocate and his back to flip away. He made the other laugh and winced as he gingerly touched it. Zabuza watched the blonde and laughed. Ah, the little brat hurt his jaw. Do you want to go crying home to let your mother kiss it and make it better? As the elder swordsman insulted him, Naruto felt a surge of heat. He cracked his neck as he slammed his fist into the base of his jaw, forcing it back into position, halting the elusive ninja's progress. Grinning, he released the resistance seal that encased his whole back, the largest of all. He laughed, making both the ninja and the one concealed in the trees perspire. What and miss our fun Zabuza.san? You don't know my pain tolerance very well yet. He vanished in a flash of black, gray, and white, and both eyes widened. He's even faster now than he was just a second ago. When Zabuza turned and stopped to slash, he realized that no one was carrying the offending sword. He had time to glance to his right when the blonde hit his own jaw with a haymaker, causing him to wince as he felt the bone crack. He picked up his sword from the ground and leapt away from Zabuza, looking back in front of him as the blonde flashed it. Feeling the power of his Gale technique run through his legs, the blonde smirks. He held Shinobu in a reverse grip while spinning it around in his palm. Then he began to loosen up his shoulders by rotating them. Zabuza gave him a startled look. The giant nodded and shot at the blonde, who said, Ready Zabuza.san, after all you waited for me to be ready before we continued. Zabuza held off on using a technique he had learned from another mist swordsman until he was close enough. The dueling partner unleashed a barrage of swings that caught Naruto off guard and slashed him from all sides in Kabiri Haucho, Mad Dance of Annihilation, before Zabuza swung his sword around him completely and slammed the flat of it into the blonde's head, sending him flying away as his sword landed at Zabuza's feet. As he attempted to regain consciousness, Naruto shook his head and said, Shinobu, I would have been dead if I hadn't used bolster. When he heard no response, he stopped and looked at his hand. Shinobu? Zabuza kicked Naruto's wakizashi to the side, far from the fighters, and remarked, So kid took you long enough to realize you were missing this. With a range of emotions, Naruto glanced at his hand before turning back to Shinobu. Anger at what Zabuza had done boiled them all down after the initial feelings of incredulity and concern. Shinobu. Haim was kicked by the bastard. As he withdrew Cayenne from her sheath, Naruto roared. In the move Shinobu had been attempting to teach him, he charged while dragging the sword along the ground. When Zabuza realized the move Naruto was going to attempt, his eyes grew wide. Since he was a recently reinstated Chunin, he had not witnessed that maneuver. Flashback of the enemy. Zabuza was seated in a room with 3 Junin and 8 other Chunin. Before the Mizukage, all of them had been summoned here. At last, one of the other Chunin yelled as he peered out the window. Zabuza hurried over with the other 7 Chunin. The match in the courtyard was being watched by all of them. 13 Junin were engaged in combat with an old man. The other Chunin sighed as Zabuza saw the man run with his sword along the ground and defeat all of the Junin with ease. Wow, I think that's the sensei to the mist swordsman, Tobichiro Honda. The 9 Chunin turned to face the blue-skinned Junin sitting on a couch with a bandaged weapon in his hand. You fishies should consider yourselves honored. If all goes right, he could end up teaching you. He revealed a complete set of pointed teeth as he examined the Chunin. With a smile that made one Chunin almost urinate, he said, "Of course you will be lucky to survive the training we went through." As the final Junin watched in drab boredom out the window, the other Junin said, "Kisame, enough, we don't want to scare the new recruits before the master even meets them." Gazing at the Chunin, Kisame chuckled as he witnessed Zabuza scolding the man from the couch next to him. Finish the enemy flashback. The blonde performed the move, destroying the ground in front of him, and Zabuza leapt out of the way. The blonde was then gashed across the back by Zabuza, who shushined behind him. As Zabuza approached him, the blonde was flung forward and onto the floor. A sword stomped into Naruto's back, slamming him back down as he attempted to stand up. He winced as his back ached and he felt his seals reapplying themselves, along with the weariness that went along with them. He let go of Cayenne Haim as he felt Zabuza's foot stomp on his wrist. He moaned aloud as Zabuza squatted down and grabbed the blonde by the hair, applying more pressure. Naruto figured that since he had nowhere to go, he should grant the man's request. "Brat, listen to me. I know this fight was to stall me till the copycat could recover. I also know that you have a hidden potential that you can reach, but you strive to hold at bay. You need to find your inner peace before you can defeat me, boy. You fight to injure, but not to kill. You will never defeat me with this mindset." Naruto began to shiver. Zabuza concluded by slamming the trembling boy into the ground and jumping off to destroy the copy ninja. "You must embrace your demons, or when we meet again, I will cut off both your arms before I leave again and make you realize that I have taken your dream of a swordsman from you. So boy, heed my warning as I take care of the bridge builder and your idiot of a sensei. Bye-bye for now." Kakashi observed the demon of the mist conversing with his pupil across the water while keeping him at his mercy. The boy shivered as the demon spoke, and since he was too far away to read the ninja's lips, he could only speculate as to what he was saying. He witnessed Zabuza jump into the water to battle his student again after he was slammed into the ground. Seated upright, Naruto gazed at the water where the two men engaged in combat. On top of the water tank, he dully observed as the two traded water jutsus at remarkable speeds. He remained seated while one of their water dragons exploded on the beach, submerging him in 8 feet of water before leveling out and revealing him completely soaked, spitting a tiny stream of water from his mouth, and rising to his feet. He glanced at Cayenne Haim lying on his feet. He took his pack off his back and took out a sealing scroll and a towel that he had purchased from the Konoha weapon store where he had custom ordered his armor, saying, "There is no way I can speak to either of them now." He placed the scroll on the ground while he took the sheath off his belt, picked Cayenne up with the towel, and slid her into the sheath with another piece of the towel. Then, as he repositioned his pack, he sealed it inside the scroll and placed both of them in his pocket. Then he set out to locate Shinobu Haim. He discovered her right before the Junin resumed their battle after Sasuke used a hailstorm of shuriken with wire attached to free Kakashi. As he had done with Cayenne Haim, he sealed her and her sheath away before collapsing to the floor. He thought about how useless he was and said nothing. He had no idea that the trees behind him were watching him. When Zabuza saw the puff of smoke and the boy's swords seal away, he looked up from where he was standing. He looked back at Kakashi and nodded, but the copycat's Great Waterfall no Jutsu blasted him. When Naruto saw something fly by, he turned to see Zabuza's body attempting to fly like a dodo. Something moved out of the corner of his eye, and he shook his head. He looked at the spot calculatingly as he turned away from the direction he was facing. The blonde couldn't see the ninja hiding behind the tree in the Mist Hunter mask. The ninja was not in a rush to confront him because they had witnessed the battle he had fought. The blonde had turned away from the ninja when he peered out from behind the tree. In order to ensure his escape from this battle, Naruto realized that the hidden chakra signature was most likely an ally of Zabuza. He nodded, then turned to see that Kakashi was holding another to his throat while preaching some imaginary ability that allowed him to see into the future, while the man who had just crushed him completely was being attacked by kunai. Unfortunately, he noticed that his teammates had fallen for it wholeheartedly. Before 2 white objects flew from the side and pierced the missing ninja's neck, he stood and moved to where Kakashi was about to deliver the fatal blow. The needles were made of senbon. Naruto was studying the missing ninja, who was playing Bone Dead quite well, while Kakashi looked in the direction they had come from. He turned to see his teammates approaching, ignoring the ninja's deception of Kakashi. Kakashi nodded as Naruto kept thinking, only to be brought back to the present by Kakashi's voice. Well, thank you for your help in defeating this formidable missing nin. But now I must go as the dead bodies of our foes reveal many secrets. Kakashi took out a copy of the damned orange book and said, well Naruto, I hope now you realize that ninjutsu and genjutsu are both of innumerable value to a shinobi. As their sensei attacked their teammate, Naruto's teammates simply stifled a smile. That is true. Those skills are of value to ninjas of all kinds. Unfortunately the key word is ninja. I am a samurai, and as such I have no use for them. I will ignore your consistent efforts to make undeniably come to my senses, but know that I will take silent relish in the fact you will be considerably more quiet for the remainder of the trip. Naruto said as he headed out to verify Dazuna's health. When Kakashi realized the blonde was correct, he looked up from his book and instantly fell to the ground due to chakra exhaustion. The blonde was right again, and he mentally slapped himself for it. The female student's shriek on his poor ears made him wince as well. Well, pick his other arm up, Uchiha. I am not going to drag this pervert the rest of the way on my own, or I'll leave him here and you and Haruno can help you drag him, and I'll just stay here till he regains consciousness and we all head back with even more chance of being attacked. As he assisted in picking up their sensei and leaving on Dazuna's instructions, Sasuke made another unidentifiable sound. The blonde was moving a little faster toward the wave, but the teammates didn't notice. After a few hours, sitting at the Dazuna family's table, Naruto gazed thoughtfully at the teacup before him. While thinking, he was distractedly tinkering with his puzzle box. He didn't realize the young boy across the table was staring at him. Zabuza will return shortly after the bridge is finished, so this isn't good. I can't defeat him unless I keep training with the sisters, but I can't learn anything else without learning how to kill, and I don't want to accept that I'm a killer. I do aspire to be a sage after all. However, Gurren Sensei hasn't started my training yet, so maybe I should give it some thought. But first, I need to get the Heims to talk and forgive me. Tsunami, I am going out for a bit to train, just tell this turtle. The young boy started to say, but Naruto sighed and took a sleeping Gurren Sensei out of his pocket. The young boy was about to yell at him when he said, when Kakashi-san wakes up. When he was a few hundred yards from the point where the beach and the river they had followed here met, Naruto stopped walking. After that, he sat down and opened both swords, but to his surprise, two much bigger puffs of smoke emerged than he had anticipated when he had closed them. The two angry sisters stood above him, their sealed states in their hands. When he saw them, he cleared his throat. Conk! Naruto gave Cayenne a startled look after she struck him with a sheathed sword. Hi my Heims. He turned to see Shinobu holding her sealed form to herself and sobbing quietly. What do you mean, hi? We were worried you were dead and all you have to say is, hi. We ought to beat you till you wish you were fighting that giant prick with the cleaver again, he said. His face was imprinted by Cayenne's sandal as he turned to face her again. She removed her other sandal and got ready to throw it as well, screaming, you're lucky we even talked to you, you. Well, you're something that I just can't think of at the moment. Reaching for Shinobu, Naruto let out a sigh. In addition to the summoning tattoo on his hand, he only received a nasty gash for the effort. Shinobu was holding her sword in front of her, blood streaming down the blade, when he turned to face her. After saying, don't touch me, you bastard. I won't forgive you for your careless behavior. Now, leave me the hell alone. She returned to the sword, which then started to glow blue, freezing a number of objects until they die, causing frost to form on their bodies. Cayenne sat in the shade of a tree and watched as snow started to form around her sister's seat. Wow, nice, you made her so upset that she might just freeze your body completely if you go near her. I haven't seen her this mad since that time father tried to force her into an arranged marriage. Nice going, bastard. As Naruto observed the events, he couldn't help but reflect on what Zabuza had said to him. He scowled and took out the long blade that Sensei had given him. Cayenne snorted at this, saying, Sensei's knife won't save you from us. We are not of demon ancestry. After giving her a chilly glance, Naruto took the knife out of its sheath. As he removed his armor and all of the clothing he had on his chest, Naruto remarked, who said I was raising this against you too. I am going to answer some of my own questions. Cayenne asked, what are you going to do? Because she didn't like the expression on her wielder's face. As he examined the seal that had been on his stomach since birth, she quickly came to that realization. She paused to watch him position the point to the upper left corner of the seal and said, don't even fool yourself with that notion. Sister isn't that angry with you. She will come out in a few hours. We just need to wait and be here when she is. He slammed the knife into his stomach, and she lunged at him, saying, oh hell no you don't. Even the fox's healing factor couldn't fix this because of the sword's abilities, she realized in a flash of crimson chakra as she crouched over the boy. As she tore a strip from her kimono sleeve and started to bandage the wound, she thought, crap, sister and sensei are not going to like this. She then tied the wound when she was done. She watched his body and remarked, bastard's going to get himself killed when the other two find out about this. The mindscape. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw something staring at him through the bars of a glaring gate of some sort. In the darkness, he could clearly see the shapes of 9 swaying objects. He reached a conclusion at once. You're the Kyuubi. He stated the simple truth. In response, he heard the beast growl at him. He approached the gate, looked inside, and saw the creature's paw swing at him with its shiny claws. The animal laughed. At last, he was able to take control of the body since the container was no longer alive in his own mind. He discovered that the object was being held in place when he attempted to move the paw. He noticed that his container was keeping his enormous paw in place when he twisted it slightly to the side. Furball, keep your hands to yourself. I didn't come here to see you and listen to your, I am all powerful, rants. If I want those I can get them for free from the village. He threw Kyuubi's paw back, causing it to fall on its rump, and said, so sit down. Then its mouth was held inexplicably by leather straps that crackled with electricity and a muzzle. Shut up, it said. Naruto turned to go, saying, and I will deal with your infestation in my mind on a later date, you overgrown fur coat. Kyuubi became enraged and roared, but was stopped from speaking by weights that appeared on either side of its jaw. The enormous fox observed as its container departed, and all of the activities it had performed abruptly vanished. Then, when it saw a lesser species being mistreated, it roared. It kept ranting until it yawned, curled up, and resumed its tirade before falling asleep. In the meantime, Naruto was walking down the sewer corridor in his head when he reached a room he believed was suitable for starting and looked inside. He glanced at the door and read, this place is empty. What the hell is this room? Favorite childhood memories, he said with a snort before continuing. Figures, first door, worst choice. In his mind, Naruto kept going until he reached another door, and then another, and still another. He moved straight to the end of the hallway, ignoring the doors as he concentrated on his purpose for being here. The room he emerged from was a perfect duplicate of the one where Kyuubi had been imprisoned. However, there was one exception. The room was completely covered in blood. He saw what he was certain he was looking for when he looked around. Naruto approached it from the side to observe its activity while it was hunched over. Naruto could not see the creature's face because its mask was twisted to the side as he approached it, but he could see its black tongue licking blood off the ground. Speaking to it, he furrowed his brow. The creature spun in response to Naruto's voice, and its mask snapped back into place. I know that you're a viscous part of me from what sensei told me of my experience, but that takes the term, bloodthirsty, just a little too far. Naruto looked surprised when it made a sound that sounded like a wounded gurgle. Nodding, the giant figure asked, you can't speak? As he watched the figure point to the ground and the blood change into words, Naruto considered this. As more words emerged beneath the previously inscribed text, Naruto addressed the figure, saying, you have seen way too many horror movies. After considering his motivation for coming here, Naruto read the following. I cannot speak because you have not used me enough to give me voice. I am after all a part of you that you yourself do not seem capable of embracing. Would you rather that I gurgle at you like a fish in regards to the bloody writing? Naruto turned to face the menacing figure inside. The figure glanced at him and nodded, asking, you are my resolve to kill people, correct? He nodded to himself, indicating that he understood the figure's frantic dance of slashes, which brought to mind the fight with Mizuki. What do you mean that I have barely used you? I don't recall using you, period. Naruto was reminded of his own near-death experience by the figure's subsequent motion. With a nod, he addressed the figure once more. The figure nodded and said, my attacking Mizuki and that time I almost drowned are the only times? Well, I don't like being here, so I guess that you don't like it either. The figure nodded and took a seat. Surprisingly, he was sitting at the same height as Naruto. The figure gestured around the room and turned to face the boy. I need all of me, including your overly viscous self, if I am going to continue with this life that I have now. So I needed your help, by you bonding with me like we were against Mizuki. Will you accept? She asked. Naruto nodded and then came up with an idea. It's like he's asking me to see if there is anything else to do in this godforsaken place. The figure nodded and grabbed its mask, asking, how will I know if this has really happened, or if this is just a hallucination from blood loss? Instead of revealing its face as Naruto had hoped, it only removed a see-through outline of its mask, held in place by a glow that revealed its features. Then it reached out and put the mask on his right shoulder, sinking into a tattoo after burning there. He had a red Oni mask on his shoulder now, with a razor blade between its teeth. His back and right front chest were covered in tribal markings that extended from the mask. After examining the various shades of red and black markings, Naruto turned to face the figure. As Naruto's form shivered and vanished, the figure waved and shrugged, asking, "Kinda of noticeable, isn't it?" After surveying the area, the figure picked up a book off the floor. It was a copy of War and Peace, but the figure was taking notes in it while the word peace was highlighted in black marker. The worldscape. Naruto's sensei was standing above him when he opened his eyes. When he looked up, he saw Cayenne grinning strangely while examining his shoulder, where the tattoo was still bleeding. He turned to see Shinobu sitting with his back to him on a log. At this, he appeared somewhat dejected. Looking at his sensei and Cayenne, Naruto beckoned them to sit closer before explaining, "Naruto, you had better explain your actions before I perform multiple exorcisms on you." He described to them how he went through his head in the corridor of doors after meeting the Kyuubi and leaving the beast alone. He went on to describe how he discovered his more viscous after Shade and persuaded him to join while maintaining their independence. Time. Naruto suspected that Shinobu heard everything, but she kept her head turned away. After reviewing everything, Gurren shook his head. "Naruto, you can't wait for anything. You and I were going to do this when we started your sage training, but instead you go and do it yourself as a way to make up for your actions against the sisters. I am going to ask you one question I have been wondering since you became my apprentice. Are you insane?" Naruto looked at his sage and nodded. The elderly turtle shook his head and said, "No, I can't say that I am sensei, but even if I were, would I be able to tell the difference? It is him all right, damn smartass, he is still himself." The turtle nodded, allowing the group to comprehend his student's unasked request. "Also sensei, I didn't do this as any form of apology. I need to do that, but your presence needs to be scarce for that to happen." Naruto then gave the other two a strange expression. The girls exchanged confused glances as a result. He then walked and positioned himself directly in front of Shinobu, saying, "Now I need to talk to the pair of you, now." Shinobu's head looked up at Naruto, who was aware that his legs were starting to freeze. "I am starting with you, since I hurt you the most and I hurt you first. Shinobu. I am sorry. I didn't feel like speaking to you in the hopes that you would forgive me too easily for being disarmed from you in battle. I know now what I have to do to make things like that never happen again. Even if that means never using the pair of you again." He cupped her cheek with his upper hand. "I cannot wield you again like I used to. Back then I was not using you to the fullest of your abilities, and that is unanswerable. I had learned every move that I chose to learn in hopes that I could use a sword to help people instead of killing them. I now realize that to truly be able to embrace my abilities as a future samurai, I have to be able to kill to help people, and vice versa. So will you forgive your wielder for his stupid mistakes?" Naruto inquired as he raised his hand to her cheek. Shinobu remained silent because she was unable to. She was trying to stop the tears from streaming down her face by biting her lips. Drops of icy water trickled down the blonde's arm until she was able to stop, which didn't help. She simply nodded at him before turning away and using her kimono's sleeves to wipe her eyes. Cayenne raised her hand at Naruto as he turned to face her. She melted the ice by running her hand down his arm and saying, "Don't say any of that mushy stuff. I was already feeling better after I hit you in the head with my sandal. So you're off the hook with me till next time something stupid happens." Then he got up and turned to face the two as they displayed their sealed states. He received them when they both nodded, and Cayenne charged forward to train him. "Now I need you two to complete my sword training, all of it. Before Zabuza recovers and I have to face him again." The day before the battle at the bridge, 6 days later. Naruto was completely worn out as he lay in the forest. He had learned all their moves in both styles. He believed he was prepared for Zabuza's return because he had formally mastered both of them. He was worn out. He saw someone enter the clearing after hearing a noise. He was reminded of the sisters by the figure's long hair and height. Despite the obvious feminine features on their face, he couldn't help but wonder if they were a man or a woman. He observed the individual observing him in his present condition. They observed him, and he observed them. This went on until Naruto posed a dumb query. "Are you a boy?" The individual raised an eyebrow at him. After nodding, they posed a query. The boy tilted his head to the side and asked, "Why are you laying on the ground?" The boy nodded as he turned to go, and Naruto saw the basket and inhaled deeply. "Because this is the softest place I could find." As he turned to go, he spoke. The stranger nodded and asked, "You're gathering herbs for a medicinal remedy?" "Yes, mister. What did you say your name was?" "Naruto Uzumaki." Glanced at the clearing and nodded. As Naruto observed him, the figure grinned and asked, "What is yours?" The boy turned to go after saying, "Mine is Haku." As Naruto started to examine the figure more closely, he was ready to bid it farewell. Then he grinned. Haku said, "Well, I must be going," and started to leave. As Haku turned around, the blonde remarked, "You aren't a boy." Naruto scoffed and strode over, leaving his swords in place, saying, "How dare you, I am too. What an insult, I bet you thought a boy just couldn't look this beautiful." Haku glared at the boy, who looked back until he dropped his eyes. "No, you're not. You try, and do a halfway decent job. You just made a few mistakes in your disguise." She inquired, "How did you know?" With a sly smile, Naruto raised his fist. He raised his pinky finger and said, "Once you're wearing jasmine and lilac perfume, I wouldn't have noticed if it didn't smell like you spilled it down yourself." He went on, and she flushed. "Second is your outfit. The robe is light but durable as to be better held to the body. You can however see the push that the bindings put on your chest at your sides," he said. As he raised his ring and middle finger, she became enraged and covered her butt. "The other issue with your ensemble is the minor detail that your underwear is pressing against the fabric, leaving their outline on the fabric. Next is the fact of your neck. I couldn't see very well from where I was fist. It's much clearer now. It is a locket. The chain is too thick to be anything else. It is probably holding a family member or something of that nature. Unfortunately, you seem to have it caught under your bindings, showing that they are there." He reached for the locket and detached it from its chain. He raised his index finger. His thumb shot up, and he put his hand down. "Last is a speech mistake you made. You said beautiful instead of pretty or gorgeous when you were telling me off, for apparently embarrassing your true nature." After glancing at the blonde, she took a seat. Beside her, he pulled up a patch of grass. To hide her error, she continued to hold her hand to her back. With a sigh, he gestured behind him. A group of trees gathered together as she turned. She smiled and hurried away as she went to fix her outfit, saying, "Fix your robe over there, I'll wait. Don't worry about me trying to peek. It's against my honor to do so without a woman's permission. Besides, I really hate perverts." Silently, Naruto prayed to Kami not to hit him with perversion right now until she came back. When she came back with her mistakes hidden, he was silently giving thanks to the gods while her outfit was fixed. She sat down after he patted the floor. She tensed up, clutched the senbon in her sleeve, and glanced at his swords, which were propped up on a log a short distance away. "So Haku-chan, do tell me how my old sparring partner is healing up." "Now that is just rude. I am just asking if he will be ready for his assault in the next few days. I said nothing of harming such a pretty lady or going after the swordsman who gave me the push to finish my sword styles," he responded with a second sigh of relief. She nodded and explained to him how she had destroyed her father and killed her mother, saying, "Very well, why don't you tell me about your family then? I am assuming they are dead since you were traveling with Zabuza-san." Add the Haku story. "I apologize for not remembering everything." Unable to shake the feeling that they were the same, Naruto listened. Haku paused and inquired about his history. Haku felt bad about bringing it up, but he said, "My parents are dead as well, I never knew them." Thus, Naruto and Haku remained seated until the sun started to set. Every now and then, they would make remarks. For the most part, they were silent. Haku was sleeping with her head on his shoulder, simply unwinding during one of the few moments when they weren't in danger of being attacked or killed. Gazing at the sun and moon, Naruto stood. When he turned, Haku was staring up at him. Before he could get to his swords after helping her up, he heard her say something. She waited for his answer as he raised his swords and said, "Thank you, for today I mean. Naruto, I have never been able to share anything with anybody before, so thank you. We probably wouldn't have developed this bond if we had met in different circumstances. You're welcome, Haku-chan. I don't look forward to fighting you in Zabuza. You have both become parts of my life now, although very different. I must say Haku-chan." Haku nodded and approached him a little closer, kissing the same cheek that Lena had kissed him. "It will be necessary for me to get a tattoo that reads, 'Kiss this cheek.'" "You mean the fact that you and I are fighting on opposite sides of the battlefield?" she responded. She blushed and turned away, which made him laugh. "No, I meant the fact that I could see your undergarments and understand what they mean." He grinned. She tried to follow him to tell him what she had been keeping to herself all day, but he was lost in the shadows when she looked up at the laugh and her eyes widened as he left. Whispering, she fell to her knees. As she gave herself a hug, she said, "Naruto-kun, I love you," but when she looked up, all she could see were trees. She smiled and put her head around her, but she couldn't see anyone there. "I love you too, Haku-chan." Knowing that he understood what she had been trying to convey, she left with a smile on her face. With his eyes closed, Naruto listened to her go while leaning his back against a tree. Humming to himself, he opened his eyes and forced himself down from the tree, making his way back to Dazuna's house. At home, He returned home in time to hear Tsunami's little boy begin to tell his grandfather that he wouldn't live to finish the bridge and that he would be killed by Haku-chan, Zabuza-san, and the other thugs from Gatu. As the Tsunami emerged from the kitchen, Naruto leaned against the doorway and rested his swords. She hurried to stop Naruto after seeing him and hearing what her son had to say. After a minute of her absence, Inari stormed into the dining room and started beating Naruto with his fists. He cried, "Why do you try? What reason would you have to throw yourselves into the way of a man who would kill you for breathing wrong? You're a fool. You don't know our suffering. You will never know our suffering. You're just someone who is here to help with us and pretend you share our suffering. You're not even worthy to be guarding my grandpa." Naruto remembered a moment when he would have beaten the punk to within an inch of his life while he gazed down at the youngster. After scowling and lowering himself to a low position, he took a kunai knife out of his haori. It was the final one he had from his ninja training. He had given one to each of the K and one to the Sandame Corps. He kept this one to serve as a reminder of his new objective. The blonde boy placed the kunai with its tip against his chest, where his heart would be, while Inari and the other two watched. The boy gave him a startled and irate look as the blonde said, "If you think we don't deserve this life we have chosen, then here is your choice to end it." Then, as Naruto spun the knife by its ring and held it the other way, against the boy's neck, the three of them stared in terror. "Or would you like our job and be the one who has to take it all away? Understand the power of circumstance, and the power of the one who makes his own decisions. Because if not, I promise you that you will not survive long in this world of fear and people fighting for selfish reasons." Naruto took the knife and put it away. He left the boy behind and went to the stairs. He visualized Wave. "And be sure you always remember, even when you have it bad," he said. His thoughts of Wave shifted to a picture of him and Haku fighting alone on opposite sides of the same battlefield, saying, "There are always others who have this worse off than you." They heard the upstairs door click shut as he shook his head and vanished. While perched on the window's edge, Naruto gazed out to the distant outline of the bridge. "When the time comes, what will be the best choice for me?" He paused and gazed at the moon, his only true parent, who had been there through everything, the beatings, the alleged executions, and the rejection of the people. "Should I kill those who are precious, or should I harden my heart and embrace the more evil intentions of man?" He asked himself. "Moon, what would you do? Would you take another red bath?" He thought this while he lay awake, anticipating the dawn and the answer that would never arrive. Kakashi made his way down the corridor to the guest room where his blonde pupil was supposed to be. Tazuna's family pretended to have seen a ghost when he saw them at breakfast. What did he do? As he knocked on the door, he thought. It is open, as there is no lock. Kakashi opens the door and peers inside after breaking out in perspiration. Working his wakizashi on a grindstone he had discovered in an abandoned wave area, Naruto sat off to the side of the room. He kept sharpening the blade without looking away. As his teammates were still searching their rooms for the day, Kakashi asked, "Good morning, Naruto. How did you sleep?" He was a little taken aback to discover the blonde so easily woken up on his own. "I didn't," the boy said, hardly making a sound as he pushed the sword along the grindstone. While Kakashi simply glanced around, he raised it and examined the edge. This level of cleanliness and organization is not typical for someone. Kakashi looked around the room and thought, he kind of reminds me of Ibiki in the torture and interrogation department. The room was okay, much cleaner than either his or the other two's. The floors had been cleaned and had a slight sheen. On one side of the room, his pack was completely empty, and everything that was inside was arranged neatly in front of it. Here, his sleeping area was folded up as if it had never been used. He noticed his coat and other clothing hanging from the windowsill, which it hadn't, still dripping from the earlier washing. The cascade of water into a bucket. He turned to find Naruto's other sword lying next to its sheath, already sharpened. After carefully sliding the sword down the grindstone once more and examining it while angling it in the light, Naruto nodded and carefully set it aside. He turned to see Kakashi examining his possessions with awe and mild fascination. Naruto stood up and cleared his throat, attracting the copycat's attention. It seems like the pervert has never seen a clean room before. Kakashi turned away from a group of scrolls that appeared to hold some sort of technique, until the boy caught his attention. He was going to try to enter the room and see if he could get a better look at them. The boy didn't appear to have slept. He didn't appear to have slept at all, despite being dressed as though he had just woken up. The same cold, emotionless, calculating eyes he'd always had. He was dressed in his regular trousers and bandages, and his chest was hidden from view by a very tightly knit net shirt. If the tension was any indication to the Junin, he was standing as though he were going to attack. Kakashi left the room with a slow retreat. The boy nodded, turned to the window, and gazed out at the light storm clouds. "We are leaving to help with the bridge, and I am sure Tazuna would require all of us to help it get finished as quickly as possible. Kakashi read the dramatic shift in the blonde's body language. He appeared to be collapsing on himself. Half of Kakashi stopped and left the door. Is there something wrong, Naruto? He asked the blonde. All Naruto could see was the outline of the forest where his next, and most likely, most agonizing, battle would take place. As he responded to the pervert, he exhaled. The Junin nodded and departed, leaving his pupil to prepare. Nothing to concern yourself with, Kakashi, just dealing with my thoughts. Naruto was almost immediately ready to go after getting dressed rather quickly. However, he waited until the other members of his team had left before putting on his haori and sitting down to meditate. He prayed in private that the future would not rob him of even more of his already waning happiness. At the bridge without a name. When Kakashi, Tazuna, and the majority of his crew arrived, they discovered the entire crew dead or unconscious on the ground. The mist started to rise up off the water, and the team froze. As he heard one of Tazuna's men whisper something about demons, Kakashi nodded and thought, crap, it seems that he did survive, so I am guessing that the Hunter Ninja was his ally after all. As soon as Team 7 saw 12 Zabuzas emerge from the fog and encircle them, they became tense. Tazuna used this moment to pull a bottle of sake out of his pocket and offer a brief prayer. So Kakashi, it seems like you didn't run after all, though you are a brat short. Shame you needed all of them last time to even keep yourself alive. I am going to guess that they have had some training to be of better use this time. It seems like the little black-haired one is still shaking. Poor Brat's probably scared out of his mind. The entire group of Zabuzas replied. Sasuke grinned. Kakashi nodded to the Uchiha and he vanished from view, only to reappear with the clones all scattered back into their liquid forms. I'm not scared, I am excited. As the mist lifted to reveal the pair halfway across the incomplete bridge, the hunter, mask-wearing figure nodded and said, well Haku, it seems that they are stronger, should be fun for you, huh? The group nodded as the men took off to fight the enemy. Okay, Sasuke, Sakura, I'll take care of Zabuza. Sasuke take that Haku person, and Sakura will be our last line of defense for Tazuna. Sasuke drew a kunai as he approached the hunter ninja first. As he got ready to face the enemy, he adopted his family's position. As he lunged, the Uchiha said, you know I really hate charlatans, and you are a perfect example of why. Haku observed the boy assaulting her. The boy became enraged, and she ducked the first swipe, the second, the third, and everyone after that. As she watched her master in the copycat fight, she caught a careless stab and kicked the boy away, utterly disregarding the irate Uchiha. In the battle between Zabuza and Kakashi, the silver-haired Junin essentially used a pair of kunai to try to get past Zabuza's defense. The ninja grabbed Kakashi's leg and swung him over his head, face first, into the ground after he ducked another swipe and kicked at Zabuza. When Kakashi poofed away to reveal a piece of driftwood, the missing ninja scowled. The foolish Junin lunged at his midsection, but he turned and idly blocked it. The other kunai attempted to bury itself in his shoulder, but instead it caused a fairly deep gash, so he leapt away. With a growl, the demon of the mist attacked, and the Sharingan user cursed. Sakura stood off to the side, holding a kunai in a worried manner. She was relieved that neither the monster nor that eerie hunter nin had to confront her. She paid little attention to Tazuna, who was consuming his sake as fast as he could. When she saw Sasuke fly back from the kick, she instantly forgot Tazuna was present and rushed to see how he was doing, but Kakashi's voice stopped her. He shouted, Sakura, guard Tazuna, that is your mission, as he pushed the monster sword away and blocked it. She shouted, but Sasuke-kun. He shouted, he is a ninja, he can take care of himself, as Zabuza stopped striking. Kakashi saw stars as the man swung and struck him in the face with a left hook, saying, well copy ninja, it seems that your team isn't very trusting of each other's skills. Zabuza's sword sliced Kakashi across the chest, and he was too slow to recover. Zabuza knocked the copy ninja down with a sweep kick to end his deadly combo. He then leapt into the air and brought his sword down with a powerful crash that rocked the bridge. As the blade rang out against the bridge's metal, Kakashi saw the crushing maneuver and rolled just out of reach. Kakashi kicked the giant, then used the kick to launch himself away from the swordsman. Haku observed her master using the copy ninja for play. She threw the Uchiha farther away after he attempted to kick her. The blonde swordsman her master was waiting for was nowhere to be seen when she turned to face the direction Team 7 had come from. She turned back to the Uchiha who had shifted his strategy to long distance and shook her head. He unleashed a deluge of shuriken, which she neutralized with senbon. As she made one-handed gestures, she allowed a tiny frown to form beneath her mask. She concluded her hand signals as a tall dragon of water and chakra materialized behind her. You really should stop trying to get my attention with these pitiful attacks, she said. The attack roared at the Uchiha, blasting him away like a ragdoll, and his eyes widened. Or I will cease to keep playing. Water Dragon Missile, I said. He bounced a short distance away and came to a stop. He looked up to see a dome of reflective ice encasing him as it rose from the earth. Then, inside the dome, came the voice of the Hunter Ninja. Senbon launched attacks from all sides, and Sasuke sprang to the side, declaring, "You will not survive this technique." Crystal Ice Mirrors. Returning to the Tazuna home, Naruto sat in his meditative pose until a scream broke the connection. A frown came to his face as he opened his eyes. Tsunami-san is in danger, he said as he stood up and went downstairs, grabbing his sword. When he got there, he saw two armed men verbally abusing her child while holding Tsunami as a prisoner. He listened while leaning back. The person with the eye patch and tattoos said, "Stupid brat, stop with the screaming. I mean hell, what is with this family and screaming? Hey Haji, can I kill this one?" Holding Tsunami's mouth shut, the companion simply shrugged. The taller one grinned and drew his sword with a flourish, saying, "We only need one hostage for Gato-sama." The man swung, but the blade was stopped in its arc. "Too bad, kid, now do me a favor and scream really softly for me." The blonde from that ninja team was holding his sword in place when they both turned to look behind him. He pulled the sword away from the man and stabbed him in the stomach with his own blade. After giving the man a disgusted look, Naruto turned to face the other one who had thrown Tsunami away and pulled out his own sword. The man cried out, "What the hell?" They said all the ninja were at the bridge, as Naruto approached him. The man started to beg for forgiveness when Naruto grabbed his throat and used force, knocking him out. They were right, I am a samurai. But for your partner's actions you will fall as well. With this, Naruto dashed through the shattered remnants of the door and made his way quickly to the bridge. "Boy, find some rope, and tie these monsters up before they realize what happened. I have to go help my idiot of a team. I can't decide between the two sides, so please let everyone live. One has my beloved, and the other is under my master's authority. I have to hurry, but I have to help them. Gale." Then, as the surroundings formed a funnel that accelerated him, Naruto disappeared in a blur.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.